Up to their siege. The BuLLgang is coming out from the Anher. Chang'e getting returned, hit by the crits though. I think that ultimate single-handedly just saved the game for WK here as she blinks in and re-engages once again, causing absolute havoc on the side of Imperial Gaming, staying alive, killing the Ganesh, getting a trade for her life before she finally falls to the Anher. She just 1v5 the entirety of Imperial Gaming and came off with. What do you think is going to do here next?
Oh, a big Thana ult and a big Sir Blink. Here we are, a big fight on the middle Phoenix.
As the Ganesh ult goes down, Ratasker also going down the backside. Crits are coming in left, right, and center on her. Giannis both getting kills individually. WK making the engage, but not benefiting them whatsoever as Kukulin now falls. All that's left is Chang'e and Thanatos.
The question is, will he possibly be successful this time? A lot of damage onto Anher and Thana.
That was a big amount of damage from the Anher autos and the Giannis too on the Thanatos. Thanatos falling for that. Anher uses his beads to try to stay alive, but the Kukulin still managed to get the kill. Vampire Gaming steals the Fire Giant. I think Giannis is running behind it and stole it with a 2.
Wow.
And now it's all falling apart for WK as Heimdall has fallen to the Ratatasker now. The remnants of Red Team desperately trying to get something, scrounge some type of salvaging kill.
On the back end, Pilot went all in and unfortunately meets himself in front of 3 all alone. He gets taken out of this one. That's the team low. 2 are trying to back off, but 2 are going aggressive. BZ takes that one. Kaizo immediately trades his life. Strap trying to get away from the Tiamat. I'm sorry, not going to happen. So a double kill will happen. And Batman now trying to get himself away, but this is a 6th level difference. He uses the slow from his ultimate, and he gets, no, not a triple, a quadra. Every kill this fight has gone his way. Just short of the Penta, as Papa will not let that happen.
To a ulted Fafnir. WK going back here, pulling the Pyro. What a huge toggle! WK will secure the Pyromancer, but a lot of damage is being put onto the Awilix. Sobek and Chaka getting focused in the backline here from WK. Fafnir trying to make some use of his ult before it goes down, but a huge Raijin ult in this corridor doing a lot of damage on the side of WK. Fafnir getting 2 to the wall by Anher. Looks like Fenrir might be able to get a kill on Jingwei in the back. RDO taking a lot of DPS in the Fire Giant pit here. Can anybody on the side of WK fall? They're all with 1 HP. Jingwei finally falls to Fenrir, and the Raijin will get the final hit on Fire Giant here, and here comes the dance.
The Frenzy was popped early to try to burn that off, but Anher within execution threshold uses the BuLLgang to stay alive by the Thanatos. Thanatos getting impaled back. His impact on this fight completely moot now as he's running for his life. Guan Yu also at 1 HP. In the meantime, Kukulin running down the Ratatasker. And it seems as though Giannis has been sent, Ganesh has been sent through the Bifrost. Anher now in the 1v1 with the Kukulin. Kukulin tanking those autos, managing to get the final blow on the Anher in the midst of this fight. Ganesh also falls. This fight seems to have been going very well for WK. Can the Heimdall stays alive at 1 HP from that entire fight. Giannis running for his life. Ratatasker managing to stay alive. Very re-engage off the Thanatos ultimate. It's going to be very effective as Chang'e gets impaled to the side walls. Anher jumps in looking for more aggression. Chang'e punishing him for stepping forward. However, the Giannis ult comes in, snipes through the Chang'e. Thana picking up on her on the backside. Now Vampire Gaming trying desperately to disengage in this fight.
Time into the Titan.
As they're starting to burn out the Titan. Health falling very fast. The Ankh going through. Titan still only half HP. The crits are ringing true from the Anher, however. Thanatos will fall from the Anher. The Giannis getting the Chang'e. Kukulin returning the kill on the Anher. Heimdall still alive and barely an HP left. WK takes the set 2-1.
Well, welcome in, Smite fans. I am Kaizo, and as you can see, I am joined by the always wonderful and always amphibious Frog. And we've got some action to bring you guys. We had some relegation games going on this weekend, and a couple of interesting ones to say the least. But we're going to bring you all the action. And Frog, what can we expect going into these games? I mean, best of ones for every single one of them, just looking to get out and show your stuff. What's the thought process going into these games?
I think it's definitely going to be bring your spice and bring it hot, because it is best of ones. You're only going to get one chance to play these teams, and it's a Swiss bracket. So if you win, you're going to play against better and better teams. So
Right.
the idea behind, okay, we're going to start regular, we're going to ramp it up throughout the day, is going to get incentivize a lot of these teams to play a little bit different and adapt their play style throughout the day as they're seeing other teams that might or may not be playing in their divisions. But I believe today we're starting with a plat game in that division.
I believe you are absolutely right with that. We've got a couple of different skill levels coming at you today, each one going to be a little bit different than the last, but we will go ahead and take you into that plat game. For the first one here, we've got BuLLgang versus Ping Diff or Ping Difference, and we've seen some Odin that's been very highly prioritized. Obviously, you've still got things like the Tiamat, you've got Gilgamesh, and then they take away the one that I was about to say, Morgan Le Fay. What direction are we thinking that these picks and bans are going to be going, Frog?
I think based on what we saw in the SPL, I mean, throughout the weekend, but also today, I'm interested in if we're going to see some of those mage solos. Hell had a really solid showing when Variety pulled it out on the Kings today, and then we saw the Aphrodite as well. But then right after that, we saw the Hell have not so great a performance. So I'm wondering if we'll see any notions of that trying to pull out something spicy, as I mentioned earlier. But right now in the band so far, we're seeing pretty standard stuff, although I will say four mages right off the bat, and there are quite a few picks still left open. Set still on the table, Gilgamesh
Yep.
still on the table, Odin, as you mentioned, and one of those three picks is absolutely going to get through, but top mage is off the table for now, so we'll see what ends up being the first pick for BuLLgang.
As you said, Frog, we've got Morgan Le Fay and the other Morgan, somewhat similar sounding, and then Gilgamesh going to round out the BuLLgang bands here. And waiting on this last Ping Diff band, they've got the Soul and Tiamat taken away, so really targeting out the mid lane, which, I mean, you just don't get to play what you want in the mid lane these days. You just get all of these fantastic mages taken away from you, and you get the scraps, and I'm not at all biased as a mid laner in saying that, but that going to be taken away here by Ping Diff as the sixth overall ban. That leaves open Yamoja. We've also got I was about to say Artemis has been seen quite a bit more frequently in that dual lane. Just a very strong late game character, works very well with this meta bow build, and they're going to lock that one in. What direction do you look to take this if you're Ping Diff and you're looking to counter this? But I think that you might have some good ideas here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hovers are exactly where I'm heading, especially the Odin, less so the Terra. I'm not sure you need to lock yourself into a Guardian pick this early with the likes of, I mean, Yamoja, Sobek, Ymir, Fafnir, all still on the board. So I'm a little surprised to see the Terra prioritize this early, but so far they get two big circle tanks, right? I mean, those are the big Odin ult is going to be pretty much, I think, a little bit less radius than the big Terra ult, but both of them are going to affect huge AoE. We saw a comp like this in a game of Relegations yesterday that was very similar. Had this Terra Odin and followed up with a Merlin mid lane to really capitalize on that AoE. Excuse
Yeah,
me, but
we
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh,
Uh,
I'll take it right away then. Yeah, exactly what you said. The Odin, the Terra, a lot of it very it's very easy, right? Like you don't get much easier than a good team fight button in like a compact enclosed area. So we'll see what Ping Diff end up picking up to fill in that cage. But meanwhile, across the way, Fenrir and Raijin, two gods capable of escaping aforementioned cage, and notably this Raijin is one that I've been looking at a little bit more into the Odin just because you can jump out of the cage, but you don't leave yourself available to getting a potential Willish ult. So that's something that they got to look at across the way. Like, well, you typically draft Odin and a Willish kind of one in the other, but they might not look for that here. A lot more jungle gameplay as opposed to support where he used to have most of his fun. How do you feel about the Fenrir into this Ping Diff draft?
I think Fenrir does have some susceptibility to that Awelish that you mentioned if they end up locking it in for this third pick as opposed to this on her, or potentially in the later half of the draft. Man, having a lot of throat trouble today. But potentially in the later half of this draft if BuLLgang do not end up banning it. But that's really the only weakness I'm seeing from him at the moment. We saw him today in SPL played in a couple of different roles, as you mentioned, jungle and also support. We saw him played in solo during relegations yesterday, and he had a fantastic effect on that game. Ended up basically single-handedly winning that last fight for his team. So this god has a ton of utility, is able to really start fights for his team as well as create a ton of space. And I love him as a prioritized pick right now. And especially since they've picked their ADC and their mid laner, he could still go to any of those 3 roles. So I expect the bans to be a little ambiguous from ping difference here.
Yeah, kind of leaving some things up in the air are BuLLgang, trying to bait out potentially a solo jungle support. You don't exactly know where it might be going, and we don't know where this Odin might be going. We've seen a little bit of this in the jungle, but more often than not, you typically take that one into the solo lane. Just very, very good at bullying out some of these other solo laners that are in the meta right now, and bans flying through here. We've got Fafnir and Athena for ping diff, and meanwhile across the way, BuLLgang just continually taking away these mages. It just feels so bad right now to play mid lane in the current state of Smite. But when the gods are this good, you can't really argue with taking away, I don't know, Morgan Le Fay, Morrigan, Scylla. I think that they're in the right ballpark with this one, especially if, like you said, they took both of their frontline early. That leaves you the opportunity to take away these secondary meta mid laners.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see 6 mages banned out across both teams here. So not surprised to see that, especially with jungle in a little bit of a worse spot than it used to be. So
Yeah.
we will see them prioritize hopefully that last pick mage on ping difference. You know, if it's going to get banned out this hard, you might as well last pick it to give your opportunity to counter pick the enemy team. But what I did want to mention was I'm really surprised to see the Fafnir ban over the Sobek, and I'd really like to see a Sobek pick here from BuLLgang. I think Fenrir really loves to coordinate with those laners or with the teammates that are going to burn those beads for his ult to get the most use possible. But Sobek, I was going to mention the Pluck does that. Something that also does that is the Ares ult, and something that also does that is the Cerberus ult. So this double Guardian lineup for the solo and support lockdown absolutely is going to require a ton of beads from the enemy team, who's currently lacking CC immunity in both of their tanks. So this could come down to a tank shredding game as we get later towards the team fights, but it's absolutely going to allow Fenrir or Ares, whichever one burns the beads first, the other one's going to get a huge advantage in that team fight.
Yeah, pretty much somebody plays facilitator and then the other one comes in and reaps all of the benefits. And I do like this option that BuLLgang have opted for with the Cerberus and the Ares. Like you said, very good at killing these tanks specifically because Odin, no innate CC immunity like you mentioned for that Ares ult. Same thing with the Terra. Terra gets a little bit more protection with that passive from something like a Cerberus ult, but Odin does not share that as much, so going to play a little bit more careful. This is a very strong draft for specifically killing frontline that BuLLgang have. You pick them up with the Fenrir, you pick them up with Cerb, with Ares, or if they try to dive the back line, you just drop the Tusky at your feet and then hope for the best. And Pingdiff going to round out our picks and bans here with this Discordia last overall, which used to see a lot more play, hasn't seen as much as, you know, like maybe some of the 6 mages that have already been banned, seeing a little bit more play, but still very strong in her own right.
Yeah, I actually love this Discordia pick. Just as you mentioned earlier on the Raijin dash being unable to be capitalized on by that Awila ult, Discordia dash is one of the ones that gets away from that Fenrir brutalize, right? It's not able to follow that.
True.
And so good on her to be able to avoid that, as well as gives you immunity frames. You can dodge the Cerberus ult, right? You can get out of that as well. You can dodge potentially away far enough from the Tusky. It gives you a lot of maneuverability during those team fights. But as much as I like the Discordia pick, I have to give my ultimate favor over to the BuLLgang draft. I mean, they just have so many times we see drafts that have this one pick that they really want to capitalize on. Like you pick the Ares and you innately want that Ares ult to do work, but it's not going to do work unless you have something to support it. But in this draft, they have the Fenrir ult, the Cerberus ult, the Ares ult, and finally, but lastly, but certainly not least, the Artemis ult, all of which are huge beads burners, all of which are solid reasons to go 5 sets of beads on your team, and they have 4 of them, plus a Raijin who might just be free casting in these fights. I mean, the amount of work that the enemy team is going to have to do to bait out these ultimates, be in the exact right position to not find themselves under a huge load of CC, it's going to be tough on ping difference to play around this composition.
Well, we will take you guys right into this game number 1 here, and actually the only game of this set. As I said earlier, these are all best of ones here, and it does look like you might have been on the money with that guess there, Frog, because 5 sets of feeds coming out for Ping Diff as we get this one started. And I have to agree. I mean, you can't play the game if you are CC'd, and BuLLgang have so much CC that they just don't know what to do with it.
Absolutely. And one thing I do also want to mention is there are still good things out of the ping difference draft, right? They prioritize this Odin heavily, they put it up top, and the enemy team, BuLLgang, does not manage to pick all leaps. You know, they picked that Artemis first. She doesn't have a leap, but that analysis, Odin might get taken down early. Fenrir only has the brutalize, but he's got the jump off cooldown now. Looks like he stood there for some taunting as well as he takes down First Blood early on the board for BuLLgang.
Yeah, some good physical damage and then mental damage also coming out of BuLLgang here as he makes that early rotation into that solo lane. And you get kind of lazy after a while if you see a lot of games where, you know, the first couple of waves very slow, very methodical, just farming the map. And speaking of which, we might see a little bit of the same thing going the other way here, mid and jungle rotating onto the BuLLgang dual lane. Good impale into the wall there from Ice will keep Brandon down for the time being, and now we see Diesel will get an auto attack, but not much more off onto this Ares, who does end up getting the blink away. Insane that Brandon has just enough HP to live through that one. We see about 50, maybe 25 at the time when he got out of that one, but action is still not over yet. Still scrapping over here in this dual lane as BuLLgang looking for a little bit of something extra. Got the Raijin on rotation, who goes ahead and jumps in, rides you off the mark, so that should be the disengage here, but these teams are very ready to go at it and just start butting heads from minute 1.
Absolutely no hesitation on that rotation to the dual lane. After they saw Fenrir over in that solo lane, they just unfortunately were not able to capitalize. It looked to me like Thor missed his double tap, I believe. He hit that first one, but then Ares slowed him with his chain and unfortunately wasn't able to be in position to hit that second one, which would have finished off the area. So a little bit unfortunate there, and BuLLgang still though ending up with the lead, and it's even spiraled a little bit after. It was only a 500 gold lead after that initial solo gank, but because of how much time they just spent over in the dual lane, nobody was farming, right? It was just a fight and they didn't end up getting anything off of it. While that mid laner was able to get a wave, Discordia lost a wave for that rotation, so they've increased their lead to 1,000 gold at this point. It doesn't seem like a ton, but it's just benefiting BuLLgang, who's going to continue to benefit if they have more of these failed games.
Yeah, and Ping Diff going to need a little bit of extra time to get online here. Discordia, not the best early fighter, nothing quite like Raijin, where you pretty much load in and then start pressing your W key. Gonna need some time to get online, especially with what looks to be a Warlock staff rush, as I'll hold that thought. Cerberus setting up the gank here. Fenrir lurking in the jungle, but not quite close enough to get anything going here. But back to what I was saying, this Warlock staff rush, very slow, but very effective in the late game. Doesn't give you pretty much anything early, but I mean, when you're up against a Raijin, who's going to be fighting that anyway?
Yeah, I do like the Warlock staff, I think, in a vacuum, but I do wish that Discordia had gone for a Vamp Shroud as opposed to this Sands of Time. That Sacrificial Shroud's really going to take huge advantage of having that extra health from the Warlock staff once we get later into the game and Discordia is able to upgrade that starter. So she will be a little bit mitigated there, but that 20% cooldown also very valuable coming from Pendulum of Ages. But hold that thought, Fenrir jumping in on this Discordia in mid, trying to chase out. Looks like she immuned that jump with the dash, but Fenrir might now be in trouble. Unfortunately, not able to capitalize. Both ults up, not able to use either one of them, though. Both teams seem a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger right there.
And Ares gonna see if he can force something here. Blinks in, gets body blocked, but still lands that chain onto Discordia, but not a whole lot of damage here. Raijin steps up and does what he can, and that will force Discordia back. Terra, meanwhile, realizes that maybe I need to be here for this one. Gets a good flank here, might have an opportunity to go in. There's some damage onto the Raijin. Thor in the air, looking for a good ult target here. Lands down onto the Raijin. There's going to be the Ares ult on the follow-up with Disc ult. Does connect onto one, so that is going to do it. Lil Zomboy will take down Bravo VGS for the first one, and now Solo Laner's making the rotation here. Bird Bomb, huge damage onto Brandon. Gonna try to break his way out, but he's not getting out in time. Lil Zomboy, with the very slow build, will get a little bit of extra help with 2 early kills.
2 early kills indeed, really gonna start him very strong. Despite that early, he's not playing for the early game. He essentially gets fed those 2 kills by a very good Thor ult on that engage in the Odin rotation. Critical to that fight, and that's what I was mentioning early game. The Odin was picked into this Artemis, right, and hasn't gotten a chance to influence her quite yet, but then they last picked this Ares. They picked the Serb instead of the Sobek, and I believe primarily for that lead that Cerberus has to get out of that cage, but Ares does not have that same luxury, and you saw him trapped in there at the end, and no Phantom to start. Instead, we see 3 blinks, and in fact, a blink from Fenrir is something that I'm generally surprised to see. I tend to prefer safer relics on him just because of his, double movement abilities, but I really need to see him use that blink, especially now that he's burned 3 sets of beads from the enemy laners. Terra, Discordia, and Thor beads all falling in that mid lane skirmish, so we should definitely see that capitalized on by either the Ares or Fenrir, or both. This is going to be an incredibly advantageous fight for them to take in the next 60 seconds.
Yeah, good call out there. And speaking of beads, it looks like Ice also just had to use his. They appear to have traded ults as well in that duo lane. So plenty of opportunity for BuLLgang to look for something aggressive here. But instead, it's Ping Diff that are kind of testing the waters and seeing what they can get. There's some engage onto the Ares again, and they are chunking him down. No beads available. Terra will go into the tower, pops the ult to get some good damage mitigation, but will not be able to survive after that Thor ult lands down on top of him. Raijin with the Taiko drums, long range shots onto 1 and 2, and here comes Cerberus with a huge blink ult. That's going to catch both of them. Lizard Fuel with a great rotation, gets 2 kills already. Now Fenrir looking for this disco, grabs her like a dog with a bone, bringing them back toward the tower. Brutalized will get the job done, but not before Zomboy turns around and answers one back. Blood on both sides, but it's actually Ping Diff that come out a little bit behind in that one.
Yeah, definitely good play from the Discordia to manage to trade that 1 kill back, but I'm just not sure I agree with the play to try and capitalize on that Ares out of position. I mean, he was a little bit out of position. You did manage to do a lot of damage. They even killed him, but you got to recognize that you are going to be at the disadvantage almost no matter what with that lack of beads. And now Odin trying to fight into this with 2 levels down as he tries to defend his blue invade. They managed to get this last time, but this time Terra's on the way to defend it. So a 2v2 to start. Thor on the way as well, but he's a little bit slower to get here, and it's Odin trying to maybe find back a kill as the blue buff has been secured, but Odin's trying to get out now. He drops the cage.
Yeah, and they're going to be fighting all over that cage. Cerberus with nowhere to go, going to drop the ult, and actually it's Fat on top of 3 members. Fenrir will go in and then gets crippled by that apple as it spreads. What an unfortunate circumstance for BuLLgang there. Gets crippled out by that disco apple and obliterated. Zomboy, he's got the late game build, but he is making it happen in this early game. Speaking of making it happen, Raijin jumps in trying to get something else here. Brandon will dive the tower as Taiko jumps come ringing out. Thor just chilling at the speed bump, tries to get involved. Raijin, buddy, you are a little bit deep here and will fall. Thor in the ult falls on top of this Ares, who will burn the ult trying to save himself, but it is of no fruition. He will instead fall there. A bloodbath, Frog, is what we seem to be in for.
Yeah, we're starting out with the arena game here, 9 minutes in, but a little bit overzealous from the side of BuLLgang trying to find that on her in between the tier 1 and tier 2 tower. They do manage to pick up the kill, but they just lost a couple of members. They lose 2 in mid, and they lose Cerberus and Fenrir over on the solo side, so 4 members fall, and that puts Ping Difference in the lead for kills, and not still in the lead for gold. They're still 1,000 or so down, but it's a close enough game to be anybody's game right now, right? I mean, this can easily go either way, and neither of the hunters have gotten super involved there. It was on her in the mid lane who got dove upon, but this Artemis, the first pick that we're looking for a lot of value to come out on the side of BuLLgang, has not gotten involved whatsoever. She's quietly attained a 1-level lead over here in the dual lane. I think as soon as she starts rotating to these fights, perhaps if the Greater Scorpion gets taken down on the Gold Fury side of the map, once we start to see that objective fought over, she's absolutely going to have an impact on these fights, and we're going to see these Spiral possibly even more out of control than they already are.
Yeah, and that's usually what you want to see, but if you're Odin, you don't want to see Fenrir at your blue buff for the 3rd time in a row here as they notch 1 more kill onto that Odin, who, I mean, I said it on the desk, I really like where Odin stands in the meta right now for solo, but if you just put him down quite like this, there's not too much you can do, and you wanted to see the blink. There's a Fenrir blink into the tower, jump off the mark, but Serb has some damage, not enough, so Raijin jumping in will finish that one off. Taiko Drums dumping out damage, and now Ares pulls the Thor away, right back into the teeth of BuLLgang here. Mongoose Man trapped in the middle of 4, in his own tower, I might add, and Ice goes, excuse me, this is my tower, rotates over, here's those ADCs that you were hoping to see a little bit more of. Cage will be dropped here, trying to just engage onto Lizard Fuel, will catch him there, nowhere for him left to go. I don't know what seems to be drawing these teams to this middle T1 tower, but that seems to be the arena for where these fights take place.
Well, I wanted to see Fenrir use the blink, and he absolutely does there. Tries to engage on Discordia, and they manage to pick up a kill for it, but they lose 1, maybe 2 in the process. That fight happened it was so scrappy. I'm not even sure who came out on top, but the end game is Artemis didn't rotate. We saw 1 ADC rotate, but Artemis stayed there, got a tier 1 tower, is now still the same way in farm, right? On her has 2 kills, Artemis has 0, but they're pretty much at the same level in their build. On her has chosen, however, to go for the Aussie as opposed to Artemis, who has gone for this Atalanta's bow, getting that early percent pen online, which should give her a small damage advantage in these team fights. And I'm telling you, as soon as she joins in with that Caledonian boar, it is going to be wreaking havoc, because we have not seen huge capitalizations out of the lack of beads or burning beads, you know, mid-fight, and another god being able to take advantage of that. We haven't seen that really outside of that first engage when that happened early on in mid, and we got Terra pulled under the tower and no shot grab. Outside of that, it's just been this constant blue buff invades, but now he's getting punished.
The poor guy. The dog in his kennel will... I won't follow that reference to the end, but you see where that one's going as BuLLgang falls, trying to invade this blue buff for the 4th time, but believe it or not, this 4th time around, they do seem to be very well aware that he was coming, and this time he happened to be by himself, so won't be able to make it out of that one, as we see a little bit of a quick pause coming out. And you wanted to talk about these ADCs getting involved. I'm not convinced that Elders wants to. I mean, I will agree, if she drops the Tusky in these fights with her build, it's going to be huge value, but for the time being, she seems quite content to just chill out in duo lane and just see what the minions are doing.
Well, she's only going to get stronger as the game goes on. As soon as we get that Silver Branch bow online, that Odysseus' bow is going to come out, the Kins is likely going to come out. Those are going to be the next 3 items. In what order is to be determined by Elders here, but Artemis is only going to get stronger. We've seen the prevalence of this Silver Branch bow build, and with that attack speed stem that on her is lacking, Artemis is going to be able to take advantage of this build significantly more than he will, and as it looks like he's not even choosing to go into that build. So I think that she may just be waiting for her items to get online, which I can understand. I can respect that as long as that's the identity that her team continues to go with. But we did see on her rotate, and that now has to be in the back of BuLLgang's mind, that they're not going to see a rotation out of their ADC, but they might see a rotation out of the enemy ADC and suddenly end up in a 5v4 that they weren't expecting.
Well, I'm talking about the dual lane, a little bit of cooldown trading going on over here as Elders drops the ult. Doesn't seem to know that Terra's around, but now she stepped on a ward, so she should know. Beads will come out from Artemis, as does the Aegis, actually. Perhaps a little overcautious here, not wanting to take too much damage, because the cavalry is coming in. Here comes Bravo, once again just jumping in on anybody he can find. Desert Fury does not do as much damage as Taiko Drums, and a beautiful chain from Brannon. That will catch the dash of Mongoose Man, and Fenrir picks her up just for the hell of it. Now searching for this Discordia kill, and Blink Ares ult will force out the Disco ult, which lands onto Bravo. Pumps out the damage in return. Chains will keep her right where she is, and Zomboy falls. Now it's actually Thor just hammering into 3 people, and will try to do his best on this red buff fight, but it's still 3 people, so he's not going to get much done there, and instead it's just BuLLgang with a very clean, very methodical 4 for 0.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that Thor teleporting into 3 members. That 1v3 was maybe a little bit too much confidence there on his end. And Discordia also misplaying in that fight, using her ultimate too early. She still ends up getting pulled back in by the Ares ult. So possibly 2 members that did not need to die there for ping difference still end up falling. And you're right, a huge advantage now towards BuLLgang, 4,000 gold in the lead. And they took the Lesser Scorpion on the Gold Fury side at the end of that fight as well. So the Gold Fury going to be spawning here very shortly, and likely we're going to have a fight at that objective. I expect to see the solo laners rotate towards this, as well as finally Odin gets his blue buff at some, I mean, like 4 blue buffs in, and he's finally managed to get his 2nd or possibly 3rd blue buff, as his tower is still fallen very low. The tower has fallen in the duo lane, it's fallen in the mid lane. BuLLgang have the serious advantage here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd love to talk about the macro play here and break this a bit more down, but we've got 25 kills in 15 minutes and still looking for more. Anvil of Dawn in the mid lane, going to be looking for this Raijin. Lands on 2, there's a great CC chain. Bravo with no mana uses the Aegis, but only buys a little bit more time. Here comes the Artemis with that ult, drops it down and gets the Aegis and the shell onto the Thor, so now we'll have to back up. No relics available for this Artemis, has to play sort of careful here, and instead it's going to be Ping Dip that back up right into the serval, pulls in 2, cage drop down over the top, chains ringing out onto Mongoose Man, nowhere for him to go, but his Strife will bring everybody together. Lil Zomboy gets a fat one in the middle of this fight, and now no damage dealers left alive for the side of BuLLgang. They've got Fenrir, but I mean, look at the guy's build, he's mostly tanky. They don't have too much fight potential here, so it looks like Ping Diff might have pulled one away.
B4 still in the mid lane. They look like they want to try and push down this tier 1 tower, but they might end up going towards the Gold Fury instead, but they're lacking ultimates. Thor is the only ultimate that's supposed to come off a cooldown relatively quickly, as well as Discordia could have hers up soon, but Cerberus is definitely going to be here to contest this.
Yeah, he is local and lurking. He's on that ward, so they do know about it. No ult available for him, as Thor just hammers into anyone that he finds, and Bravo will ask him politely what he's doing in that side of the jungle and send him on his way, and then actually start up this objective. A little bit risky here, 2v4. Ping Diff are low and haven't reset yet, but they are local, so instead BuLLgang will flirt with it, but sort of allow it to reset here, and I assume that we would have a reset as Icy tries to back, but instead Terra gets pulled by the Blink Ares ult. Chain again. Brannon will pick up one more onto Mongoose Man, who's been bullied in this one. There's 5 deaths onto the Terra, and this should be a free Gold Fury at this point.
And look at this macro play by Fenrir. He knows he's not needed for the fight. He can't help out anyways at such low health and mana. Hopefully he doesn't end up falling here, but I think he's left in time. Still able to get a lot of free farm for himself. Now 3 levels ahead of this Thor. And can we talk about for a second how fast that Thor died? He teleported in and immediately channeled the Anvil of Dawn, but was not able to get up into the air. Bravo GS putting out a ton of damage on this Raijin, also a level ahead. And look how this build has suited him. He's got immediate lifesteal rush, as well as that flat pen on the Spear of Magus going right into the Typhon's Fang. Already at 30% pen, getting stacks in the Charon's Point as well. It's only going to get worse from here as he eventually gets that Sacrificial Shroud, already level 17, close to that level 20, tied for the highest level in the game. He is farming incredibly well as Ares and Artemis both up here towards its Gold Fury, and we still haven't seen Artemis get involved in a fight. She was near that Gold Fury, but everything was over by the time there, and we might see Odin forced to use his beads as he sets down a good cage, but That's something we need to see taken advantage of in the next team fight. They have to be keeping track of these beats.
Well, if we get to see a team fight instead of just these little 2v2 engagements on both sides of the map, and I'm convinced Brandon just doesn't like Mongoose Man at this point. It just seems like no matter where he is, if there's a Terra in front of him, he's pressing all of the buttons, and we have seen that a lot so far this game. And talking about these builds, I mean, well, I wanted to, but we've got another Ares ult that's going to pull in Odin with freshly forced out beads, capitalizing on that cooldown well, but he's a very tanky boy with only the Cerberus to deal damage to him, so he will go ahead and just jump out. But there's even more aggression on the left side as Fenrir grabs Ice, who fires back the Desert Fury, just has no way of killing this mostly tanky Fenrir and the Artemis by himself. Pingdiff are getting split up and just systematically dismantled.
Yeah, they're winning all the skirmishes across the map right now as both these Guardians continue to take and win this 2v2 over on the right side of the map. Fenrir keeps trying to be annoying. He was split pushing that right side of the map. He's now, at their red. He didn't get the steal off, but he's just trying to waste time, reduce the enemy team's farm efficiency, and he's doing a great job of it, still maintaining his huge lead, now tied once again for the highest level in the game. And I feel like I keep saying that there are now three people tied for the highest level in the game. It's just been continuous farm, great macro play in addition to these skirmishes. I mean, something like this where there's so many kills back and forth, you're typically looking at enemies that aren't at or close to level 20 yet, right? Because we've seen so much fighting, so many skirmishes that people typically don't have as many chances as they would in a slower game to get that consistent farm online. They're not just going from camp to camp, especially the jungler. They're missing waves here and there. But this game in particular, despite the fact that both teams have a similar amount of kills, you're still seeing a huge XP and a huge gold lead for BuLLgang, able to secure that objective, able to more consistently get their farm and take advantage of the map. So massive props to them, but we have to start talking about this Fire Giant. 21 minutes into the game, seems like members are grouping up on this side of the map, and on her, not joined with his team, so currently a 5v4 situation around this objective.
Yeah, Raijin backing, though, so they do have an even fight and immediately look to force it here as Elder's not quite on the mark with that Tusky, a little bit slow on the draw as the Caledonian Boar, so BuLLgang will have to retreat into the jungle for the time being, and the rest of Pingdiff are here. Brandon blinks in and sees what's going on, and it's only the Thor, so they start dropping whatever they can on him, but he gets the Anvil of Dawn off, looking for a target, lands down into the middle of the Odin cage, and now we see the Terra ult coming out as well, so huge fight here. Immediately damage pours down onto Diesel. On her just got here and is immediately picked up by that Fenrir ult. Disco ult hits a couple, that's good damage, but here comes even more from the Taiko drums. Ares ult on the back end, gonna pull one more in. Mongoose Man, tell me if you've heard this before. You're getting Ares ulted, buddy. And now tier 2 tower dive. Thought about, but not quite executed on. BuLLgang sprawling, spiraling out into the jungle, fight whenever, wherever, and however they want to, and now get a Fire Giant on the back end of it.
I don't know if you saw that, but Ice's beads coming up just as he falls. So he gets Fenrir ulted, and then he gets Cerberus ulted, and then he gets Ares ulted, all to fall, and he didn't get to use his beads on any one of them. And now it looks like they're going to secure the Fire Giant. Odin not able to get there in time, despite a couple low members here on the side of BuLLgang. But it looks like he's stuck around even longer than he anticipated. Puts the cage down, and Fenrir follows him with the Brutalize.
My God.
To that ability, and Thor now in the air. I hope he doesn't
land on him. Hit him, hit him.
Oh, he
not that one! Oh, well, I guess that one works too, and he gets that one. Double tap will try to finish off Raijin, but not going to be able to. I mean, you gotta respect the hero play that he went for, but doesn't quite have the damage.
He does manage to take down Elders, though, so that'll be the Fire Giant off of the ADC, and he barely missed that double tap onto the Raijin. Could have taken down both carries there. I think I can absolutely respect the play, but still BuLLgang in the driver's seat. 8,000 gold up, largely on the XP as well. But now members have respawned. There could be some farm stealing here over the left side of the map. And importantly, this Oni Fury is the next Fury. There's some potential for them to grab this objective and push with the Fire Giant, but there's also some potential for Terra and On Her to grab it right here. They have the Oracles. No members are around it currently, but it looks like they're going to back off for now and just focus on the defense. And I think they should defend these tier 2 towers. I think they absolutely have the composition to do it and possibly burn some of those beads burning ults on the enemy side as they're trying to take the towers that might not result in deaths.
Speaking of beads, we've got about 30 more seconds on some very important cooldowns for ping diff, so not the best fight that they could be taking, but still looking for this Oni Fury nonetheless, realizing how important it is. There's a chain onto clocking, and another one. He is going nowhere. Fat stun there, and that's going to be a big Ares ult also. Pulls back and executes Ice. Thor up in the Anvil of Dawn, trying to re-engage onto this one. Will land on Brandon for a bit of heal, but no one is healing for clocking, who is surrounded and pounded by the entirety of BuLLgang. Mongoose Man then gets smothered by whatever is left. Thunder goes on to Disco. Aegis comes out. Not much time left on the health bar. He will fall. Thor uses the beads on just a slow, but it is not enough to save his life. Deicide here for BuLLgang, and they don't even lose a single member.
Yeah, just incredibly disoriented from the side of ping difference. I really would have liked to see these big ultimates more capitalized on as they're team fighting. You saw Odin ultimate popped just as an escape tool. None of his teammates were able to capitalize on the members trapped in the Odin ult, right? Raijin Dash was down. He was trapped in that cage, as was Artemis, as was Fenrir, right? But nobody's around to make sure they're capitalizing on that, as Thor and Discordia are 2v1ing this Ares over on the other side. But why target the Ares? He's not a target that you can take right now as a jungler and a mage, and sure enough, they're not able to kill him, and they fall eventually, and they're on her just being too far up as well to fall first in the fight. You saw how much damage he took and then finished off by the Ares ult as well, and he uses his beads in a dying effort, so those are still going to be down for the next team fight. The one saving grace is they weren't able to end. They only managed to secure this one Phoenix, and they still have their Titan up at full HP, and it doesn't even look like they're going to try and get this second or third Phoenix anytime soon. They're just taking down these tier 2s as all 5 members now respawn for ping diff, so they do get the chance here to have a proper Phoenix defense if BuLLgang choose to push.
Well, we finally get a second to breathe here, potentially, and look at... I've been trying to talk about these builds, Frog, for the entirety of this game, but with 44 kills in 26 minutes, there's a little bit more going on the screen than I'd really care to talk about. So, we'll start, how about Spear of Desolation Ares? How about you start there for us?
Spear of Desolation Ares. I wish that he would have gone the Spear of Desolation, or not the Spear of Desolation, the Spear of Magus instead, because I think that would have given him able to, help his teammates deal a little bit more damage, give him some lifesteal, but he wants the cooldown, which I can respect, right? He's got 40% right now, and that's clearly the goal he was aiming for, so I can't get too upset about that. Going to Sentinel's Boon as well, so he's actually going to not be protecting his teammate with that aura on the Sentinel's Embrace. Instead, he's going to Sentinel's Boon, so he's going to heal more as they siege here. That's definitely going to benefit them as they continue pushing these waves. But one item I really want to talk about is this Toxic Blade from On Her.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how he could not really go into the bow build as efficiently as Artemis can, and so he's chosen instead to go this Toxic Blade. So double flat pen coming from the Aussie and the Toxic Blade, but his only percent penetration coming from that Atalanta's bow. So, and he doesn't have kins yet, so he's gonna have a really hard time burning through these double Guardians and this incredibly tanky Fenrir. I'm not a huge fan of this On Her build. I can appreciate that you want anti-heal, although I'm not even sure it's necessary, certainly not on your Hunter, but it's just really lacking in damage. I mean, you see how little damage he's doing to this Cerberus. He can just aggress freely.
The Cerberus with a Divine Ruin, by the way, and they're taking this fight. The Dogs versus the World in right lane, 2v3. Thor and Discordia not present for this one, and neither is the rest of BuLLgang, because they're doing Fire Giant. Beads forced out of On Her and just immediately grabbed up by this Fenrir. Cerberus will continue the most awkward CC chain I've ever seen, but effective nonetheless. Double stun onto clocking. Cage comes out, Phantom comes out, Ares ult onto everybody, pulls in Mongoose Man. One chain will land on the mark, but not quite the same with the other. Raijin chasing into this Phoenix gets cleaned up by Diesel, defending the backline, but the damage has been done. Phoenix has been taken. Now only 2 more members alive to take on the entirety of BuLLgang, save for Bravo GS. And it seems like they're going to have an easy time of doing it here with this much damage. Thor hammers in and forces 1 out, but now Aegis will buy him a bit more time, not quite enough. Ping Diff's Titan under attack here. 3 members in the throne room, 1 watching from the outskirts. Do they have the damage to clean this one up? The answer is they absolutely have the damage. Almost all of them built damage, and BuLLgang in 29 minutes after 49 kills, get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Raijin goes a little bit too far there. He falls. He didn't really need to fall there, but I can appreciate getting a little bit jumpy at that point in the game. But it has to just be about the pace that BuLLgang was setting the entirety of the game. They were always on the front foot. There wasn't a single fight past 10 minutes that they were on the back foot. The enemy team was on the back foot 100% of the time, and that was either resulting in a pick, as you saw on her get picked in a 2v3 losing battle right there. He loses a pick and he loses his life at the beginning of that fight. And then Odin, once again, fight after fight, forced to use this Odin cage defensively as opposed to using it to lock enemy team members in to get that guaranteed damage out of your mid laner. And Discordia, this whole time, she is typically the last one targeted in these fights. She's having some good positioning, throwing out some good stripes, definitely getting her damage off, top damage on her team by far. In fact, Discordia had the top damage in the entirety of the game, so have to give credit to her for still being able to put down damage, maintain a positive scoreline, but just was not getting any help from her team. Really scuffed target focus on several of those fights, and the ultimates weren't being used in transition when they needed to. A lot of defensive uses of some of the best offensive ults in the game in the form of the Odin and the Terra ult, I think, cost them this game ultimately.
Yeah, and you talked about the pace of this one. I think that it only favors BuLLgang because they have all of these "are your beads up? No, you're dead" kind of abilities. And the opposite, the Ping Diff draft is a lot more, we want to wait for Terra ult, wait for Odin ult, wait for Thor ult, and then use them all at the same time. But with these scrappy sort of fringe engagements that BuLLgang went for, they really just sort of rolled through the map and fought wherever they want to. So an easy, or at least well-deserved, 1-0 goes the way of BuLLgang, and we will throw it to a quick break here as we prepare to go into this second set of the day. So stick around and we will be right back with some more action.
And welcome back, folks. We are now watching an open division game. It's going to be better from behind BFB versus LOL Sus on the left side of your screen. We've switched roles here, so it's now me introducing Kaizo. Kaizo, how you doing? You ready for this one?
I am always ready, and I am also always on center and didn't have to adjust my webcam at all.
Oh, I totally just had to adjust mine as well as I moved myself off the screen here. But I think from the last game, we saw some interesting plays after a pretty standard pick ban phase, I want to say. Both teams ending up with drafts that I think they were favoring and nothing super spicy coming out. So I'm hoping we're going to get to see a little bit of that spice before the day is out. But certainly not starting off that way, as we see a very standard Tiamat ban off the bat, followed directly by the Gilgamesh. I mean, if you had to guess where the spice is going to come from, what role, what band, first phase, second phase, I mean, what are you looking for?
I don't know. It's always hard to tell at the early stages of the draft just because you have so much flexibility right now because of how much is so strong. You have the option to try to ban it all out, which usually leaves up one or two good picks, or a lot of teams recently have been flirting with the idea of just letting everything through and then taking whatever they favor the most or trying to take more opportunities for themselves. So we'll see what exactly comes through here, but it looks like the Artemis that we saw in the first game banned out, Gilgamesh also pretty standard. I like the way things are going so far.
Absolutely. Athena and Sol banned out from LOL Sus, and Sobek and Artemis banned out better from behind. And we are going to see this first pick. Still quite a few picks open, excuse me. Odin is on my mind, however, as one of those top picks that could come out, as well as a number of picks we saw last game. Raijin had some success, as well as we're seeing significantly less mages banned out in these first 6 bans. We had 4 last time, only 1 this time, so that's going to leave Morgan up. It's going to leave Morgan Le Fay up. It's also going to leave this Osiris up, a very top of the meta god right now that we did not see banned or picked in the last game, but really valued right now for his flex potential ability to go off either in the jungle or the solo lane.
Yeah, and Osiris, I mean, you'd hit the nail on the head there. The last game that we watched was from the Plat division. This is from the Open division, which is our highest skill level here in Albion Giants. And they clearly seem to realize that Osiris is just the best god in solo and maybe or probably the best god in jungle. It is impossible to kill him if he builds and plays correctly. And then you also have every opportunity to just run somebody down from minute 1, especially with the prevalence of Mannequin Scepter. And then even if the enemy team, I don't know, picks Odin and Yamoja, you can still walk through those walls with that Ghost Walk passive. It is very, very strong right now.
Absolutely, and just as you said, we do see those 2 picks, Odin and Yamoja, coming out from better from behind. Very little hesitation on their part as well, basically locking in that Odin as soon as it was found out that he wasn't going to be first picked by the enemy team. But we do see that Raijin hovered as was played in the last game. I believe that has a 100% win rate on some characters in the SPL right now. Some people playing him having a ton of success on that god, and he puts out quite the amount of damage. And now they have their top 3, right? It looks like it's going to be jungle, mid, and ADC on the side of LOL Sus, if I had to guess. Are you a fan of how this comes together?
Yes, and I was actually just about to say that this is a spooky draft if you are better from behind here, because I would argue Raijin, while not necessarily the best god for his role, will always hold his own and at least have the opportunity to fight back. And then we talked about the Osiris already. Heimdall has fallen out of favor a little bit to something more like the Anhur and the Artemis, but still incredibly safe with that Bifrost. Very good anti-dive, just basically forcing beads or a bubble on a frontliner if they want to dive into the back line, plus high damage output from minute 1. This is a excellent top 3 from LOL stuff. I think that they got pretty much everything they could have asked for.
Well, the final pick in this first round of picks is going to be that Apollo from Better From Behind. They want that global pressure on their team. Interestingly enough, this Morgan Le Fay, just getting banned out now by LOL Sus, was not prioritized at all in that first phase of picks. They chose the Raijin over it, and BFB did not pick a mage at all, so that gives now room to ban the Morgan, likely banning another mage after the fact, and it looks like Better From Behind looking to ban out these Guardians, the Ymir and the Jing Chen coming through. And it's Better From Behind pick up next. Do you think they hold their mage pick to the end of the draft to counter pick, or would that be a better pick for jungle?
I would say at this point you want to give your jungler the opportunity for a counter pick. You pretty much know what you need to deal with. If you're a mage at this point, you're going to have to be able to withstand some amount of damage and have a little bit more safety. Whereas as for the jungle pick, you have to know a little bit more about what specifically you're going into. So I like picking up the Scylla here if they do end up locking this one in, just giving you exactly what I just asked for, just damage output from safety, which is critical against something like a Raijin, which hits you accidentally, and like the Osiris, which will just run at you in a straight line.
Yeah, and Scylla bringing that huge damage for the side of Better From Behind. Apollo was something I was a little bit concerned about being their only damage source, so I was wondering what they were going to pick after that, as Apollo does lack that AoE outside of his ultimate. But now they have a ton of setup from Better From Behind as LOL Sus locks in their last two picks, actually hovering their Cerberus right now as they've locked in the Awilish. And taking a look at the enemy team, they have that Odin with the jump, and I think the big thing that comes to my mind is that Riptide on Yamoja
Yep.
was an asset, now maybe a hindrance.
Yeah, I love the Awilish, specifically into Odin and Yamoja by themselves, but together, I mean, this is just the biggest value Awilish pick you can pretty much ask for. And I'm surprised that Better From Behind would opt to ban 2 Guardians instead of this known counter pick to 3 of their characters. I mean, we saw an entire world set where Awilish was considered to be the answer to the Scylla pick that was very prevalent at the time. So giving that one away is a little bit sketchy to me, but they have to have some kind of plan in mind, and it looks like they're flirting with the Loki as their potential answer to this one, and they do end up locking that one in. So they're gonna have to play very careful with these jumps, with this Riptide around this Awilish. It's going to be a lot on the LOL Sus jungler for my money for whether or not they have success in this one.
Absolutely. Yesterday we saw a relegations match where the Awilish was picked once again into a couple of jumps on the enemy team. They did have the Odin at that time as well, and she just proved to be ineffective, not using her early game pressure, actually going into a hybrid build instead of that damage build that we typically see on Awilish's, trying to make a name for themselves in that early stage of the game. But now that we have both drafts on the table, we have a lot of damage coming out from Better From Behind, as well as on the side of LOL Sus. So both advantages in either drafts, right? There's the Odin to lock things in, but there's also the side of Better From Behind, which is going to have this Awilish and this Raijin able to pull out this CC, right, and do a ton of damage there, as we do see the Osiris likely going to the solo lane now that this Awilish has been picked. I mean, who were you favoring here?
It depends on the way that the game is played, because LOL Sus, or excuse me, Better From Behind have a lot more structured team fight in that they have this Odin cage, which is very powerful in a structured team fight environment, as is the Yamoja ult. You have to get value out of the fight in that expansive time while those cooldowns are active, whereas BFB has a very, very strong early aggressive composition, specifically in the mid 3v3. They can kind of just run at this Better From Behind draft if they're not careful. So a slower paced game, I would say, favors the Better From Behind squad. But if they can make this game a little bit faster paced, make it a little bit more intense, I would say that LOL Sus can take this one.
All right, sounds good. We know who Kaizo is favoring, and we can jump right into the game and get a look at how these drafts are going to do for ourselves. First thing I see as we load in here is taking a look at these builds. As opposed to last game, we don't see one solo laner going for defense where the other goes for this ranked as mask start. We do see both solo laners go for this aggression. And I don't know if you have any experience with this matchup. I mean, who are you expecting to come out on top here, especially in the early stages, just in terms of poke? They're both clearly looking to do damage to the enemy. Neither of them has that huge sustain. Osiris having a couple more health pots, but who are you favoring here?
From what I understand, Osiris gets the better of this matchup early on, and then right around the level 5 mark, Odin gets that kill potential onto Osiris because he has the favorable ult trade, is at least what I'm told, but it should be pretty passive after that point.
You do see some early aggression here in the mid lane. Blink from Loki onto this Scylla, trying to get that damage out early, but does not manage to finish onto the Kaizo. And excuse me, that was a Wheelish actually blinking in and finding that aggression. They've chosen similar skins this game, it looks like. But it was Kaizo able to survive in that mid lane, dispensing the beads as well in order to do so. So Wheelish not able to pick up that first blood, but I certainly think we see where the pressure lies so far. Wheelish wants to get things going early.
Yeah, and gonna look for a back camp invade here on the back end of that one, which is an excellent call. I mean, like I said, they have this early aggression in this mid 3v3, and you can see Osiris even floating his way over here. They don't really lose this just by virtue of the gods that they've picked and the way that the draft functions. Obviously, a little bit handed to them by the less than safe pathing taken by Better from behind there. But at the end of the day, you have to be more careful.
Of aggression coming over in this dual lane as Apollo falls pretty low, as does Yamoja, but it's actually Davies picking up Hawkblade in the mid lane, turning it around, guaranteeing that first blood for himself, as opposed to going at a shotgun warrior of the Awilish as Raijin likely caught without his dash in the mid lane. But they're going to only secure their own red buff, as opposed to going for a red buff invade, which would have been almost foolproof, as Awilish is here on the right side of the map instead. I mean, do you agree with that decision? It seems like they're playing a little bit more passive than they need to.
Yeah, they seem to be looking for this one here, and will actually head in that direction after clearing this mid wave. So answering back that engage, but now dual lane actually rotating over here. Kaizo needs to be careful and will actually get caught by this Heimdall and the Cerberus. Nowhere to go, no jump available, and Hawkblade actually gets that one taken away by Dark Plays on the signature Heimdall. So a little bit of farm goes the way of the LOL sus dual lane as a result of what was perhaps a little bit overzealous, or at least too late of a red buff invade.
And them delaying that red buff invade definitely ends up hindering them. That they still try to go for it. They still do take away the buff itself, so some mental damage being inflicted onto LOL sus, absolutely, as we are doing a much slower start than we saw last game. Only one kill from each side of the board here, around 3 minutes 30 seconds. We do see another engage here onto the Raijin. Getting off his combo is Loki, and it looks like Scylla has the damage to finish this one off. Good on Davies to use the last amount of his mana. He timed that perfectly, only using his Assassinate and his third ability to get that damage off, and Kaizo being in a good position to follow up. That's the second kill now onto this Raijin. He has to be more careful with this positioning.
Yeah, and they might want to look at the same thing over here in dual lane, but actually backing up is LOL sus, so Better from behind will live to speak another day. But, I mean, I agree, you want to play aggressive, you want to be in there as this Raijin, but you can't afford to be caught out by this Loki, who, not even a full item online, doesn't have as much burst damage as you typically think in the mid and late stages of the game. You need to get more value out of this early aggressive Raijin pick, and if you're positioning the way that Hawkblade has up until this point, you're just going to keep getting caught out like that.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually about your thoughts more on this Loki now that he does have this first item online. He's chosen to go with the Crusher as opposed to something we might typically see a little bit more often, either the Jotuns or the anti-heal option in the Brawler's Beat Stick, but the Crusher is not something that I've seen typically. What are your thoughts?
It gives you much better damage output in one isolated engagement, but as an overall damage curve, it kind of hinders you for extended engagement or neuters your ability to make effective rotations more frequently. This Crusher gives you a little bit more damage, basically, but lessens your ability to make these rotations more frequently with something like a Jotuns, or taking a more extended engagement and cutting down on that healing with the Brawlers, as you mentioned.
Well, Loki, especially at this stage of the game, is all about that one-and-done combo, just like we saw onto that Raijin a little bit earlier. Assassinate into Flames, the Flurry of Blades, throwing out everything all at once to try and maximize that damage. But now we're seeing the supports rotate towards this mid lane. Cerberus giving a little bit of aggression here as Raijin back, so not necessarily on the same page, but I don't think he's really in any danger. It might be the enemies that are in that danger. It's Wheelish now rotating in. Kaizo trying to get away from this Scylla ult. The Shotgun Warrior trying to finish off the kill, but the jump is just barely not enough damage, and he actually feather steps away from the kill and gets himself taken down. Davies securing that kill. Cerberus also on the chase, but unable to secure that, but we're still continuing on these right side mid Harpies. Davies now in trouble from Hawkblade, popping the Raijin ultimate, but not taunting the Emoja back in. Could have potentially been a second kill here, and it might still be, but great peel helping out his support from Kaizo. Still fighting the ball, and it is going to be the dash under tower. Hawkblade securing his first 2 kills.
Kaizo still looking for a little bit of something here. Good damage on the Raijin will actually pick that one up, as meanwhile Apollo in the air, rotating onto the Cerberus. Damage will come down in the CC chain. Pretty Boy notches the second one of that engagement, so just overextensions from both sides there. I mean, Davies way too long stayed on those mid camps. You really have to expect Raijin, who wasn't in the entire front end of that fight, to rotate back over, and then just way too deep going between the tier 1 and tier 2 towers for LOL Sus. You need to be a little bit more disciplined than that, and realize when you have your opportunity and when that opportunity has been exhausted.
Yeah, a little bit more kill hungry than he needed to be, dashing under that tier 1 tower. I can respect the play, absolutely, but right now we can respect the Odin trying to take down this Osiris, but Osiris forcing the ultimate out of the cage. So both ultimates there expended in the solo lane, and now Osiris will secure his own blue. But we saw him secure some of the back camps, some of Loki's back camps. He still has the advantage in this solo lane, and now it's actually Odin. I thought he was going to get pulled back in there, but a Wheelish chooses not to pull the trigger.
Yeah, kind of sketchy, especially with how Ravioli Bologna was. He didn't have too much mana, he didn't have too much health either, so it pretty much would have been all Shotgun Warrior to do that damage. But hold that thought, we've got a little bit of aggression in left lane here. Cerberus gets the jump out and still has members surrounding. Kaizo jumping in.
Man, all been very nice, but he only uses it for peel. He's still trapped right now. Fantastic River's Rebuke from the Emoja, going to lock him in, and despite that I'm a Monster being off the mark, they're still going to finish off that kill. Johnny is God falling early, unfortunately pushed up a little bit too far for his own good, but still a relatively slow game in terms of pure gold and XP lead. The gold is essentially even at this point, as we've seen some kills traded back and forth, but none of them have been of any huge consequence for either team.
Yeah, and I think you expressed that perfectly in that it's been very back and forth in this one. Both of these teams have had their opportunities and capitalized on them, but then just overstayed their welcome just a little bit too much and gotten punished for it on the back end. And now Ravioli Bologna looking for a proxy here. Davies is local and on this blue buff.
V1 here if he chooses to take it, but he's just going to de-aggro as he runs back through this tier 1 tower, but he's still in some danger. His ultimate is up, so he can use that to escape when he needs to, but he's trying to turn it around on Davies. He actually ultimates under the tower, getting that final ability off, and he's going to be able to trade out himself, but it might just be a 1-for-1, as now trying to turn it into a 2-for-1. It's Odin versus Shotgun Warrior on this Wheelish. Wheelish waiting for that feather step to come up, does do a little bit of damage, but Odin's going to follow this jump as soon as it happens, I expect. It might just be his... just barely didn't get the heat-seeking missile off on his third ability. Not able to trade out that kill, and Johnny is God lacking on the damage as well. As another fight in the mid lane, Apollo has actually been thrown out in the dual lane. Excuse me, I saw him traveling through Niflheim over the mid lane on the map, but it's actually Heim pulling out the solo kill. Dark Please, as you mentioned, a signature pick for him, definitely making it work right now.
Yeah, Pretty Boy waves down to the Scylla and the Emoja as he goes all the way through Niflheim and Muspelheim, which apparently are in mid lane. I mean, I didn't know that, but there's a little bit of trivia for you. And this is a very interesting matchup that I didn't get the chance to touch on just quite yet, but Apollo uses attack speed incredibly well. And the meta build right now, as you can see both of these ADCs going for that balanced blade after the Ichval, has a lot of attack speed reduction, at which point one would think that Heimdall would be favored in this one, especially considering he has all of those damaging abilities through the realms. I mean, we just saw how much damage that can do. You have to imagine that Dark Please has the advantage in this matchup, but I guess they're just scrapping anyway. Pretty Boy not too shy to take the engagement regardless of the matchup deficiency and gets punished for it at that point, but still good rotation so far out of him. 2-1 on this Apollo, even though he did just fall there, answering back against this 2-0 Heim, but they will have to do something about this Heim at some point. He is getting quite fed, and they will need to answer it one way or another.
Absolutely. Heim is going to be one of those gods hitting strong in the late game, regardless, it feels like, of if you're behind or ahead on this god. He just swings so hard with this increased damage per basic attack. And one thing I do want to point out is with this global presence from the Apollo that we haven't talked about too much. I mean, when I saw him in that mid lane, I thought that he had ulted first, for a second, because he had ulted to another fight previously, learning to use this global pressure early on, but it might actually be Davies in some trouble here, taking so much of his health. Great combo out of Dark Please on the Heimdall, just barely not able to finish off the kill, but does force out the beads from the Loki, so definitely still a small win there, and now 2 levels ahead of his counterpart, as we do see some scrapping over here in the solo lane, but it looks like both ults have been expended, so no follow-up from Ravioli.
Yeah, tell me if you think that Dark Please has been playing this god since, I don't know, March, April, and making it look this good. I mean, he is so comfortable on this Heimdall, and the damage that we just saw onto Davies, from an ADC, I might add, it looked like the roles were reversed, because Davies just got bursted by what I could only describe as assassination. But I guess he had just enough HP to live through that one, and now a little bit of scrapping here in the mid lane, but should be an easy disengage, one would think, but potentially looking for a little bit more.
They do want to get some poke off. Kaizo forced down to half HP there. Zimoja heals him up, but he's going to be forced back to base anyways. All 3 members of the enemy team, that 3v3 in mid, all surrounding around that, but after forcing Kaizo to back, it looks like they're going to pressure onto this Gold Fury, and doesn't look like anybody's the wiser, except for perhaps Apollo. Coming around the corner right now is Pretty Boy. He knows this is happening now. Yemoja is on the way, but it looks like they're going to finish it off before anybody gets the chance to steal, and now he might be in trouble. The beads forced out, and it looks like everybody is falling back, except for Osiris blinking in, forcing out the ultimate from Pretty Boy, but he is the one casualty of this fight, trying to step back into lane a little bit overzealously there.
Yeah, and you just gotta be more careful in that one. You can't walk back into the left side of the jungle when you know that's where the enemy team is, and now they're surrounding this middle tower in mid.
Absolutely, trying to push this one down. They still have the advantage here. Odin and Loki, though, coming in on the backside. Loki looking for the assassinate, doing a lot of damage onto Ravioli to start this fight, but it might be Johnny in trouble now. The double stun coming out, and that combo from Kaizo with the crush and popping the I'm a Monster just in case, but he manages to take down that kill as well. 2 members of the enemy team fall there as they overstay themselves just a little bit in the mid lane.
Yeah, that seems to be the story of this one so far, and with that I'm a Monster, Kaizo climbs to the top of the damage charts with a clean 6,500, going for this very standard mid lane build. This is typically what I expect out of anything that doesn't specifically want to build a sacrificial shroud, but hold that thought, Osiris just by himself here fighting all of BFB.
Trying to defend this tier 1 in the mid lane, but it is going to fall regardless. Now it's the Wheelish in on the backside, trying to take out Davies, but Davies with some good relic usage is going to stay alive. Both Osiris and a Wheelish now at half HP, and it's Johnny's God pushing up on this Osiris. Ultimate is available for him, trying to get a good play, waiting for his Raijin to get into range, as now it's Odin in, and Ravioli is pushed up a little bit too far for his own good as he gets taken out. Raijin ult now down as well. Johnny's God trying to get a good ult, gets 3 pulled in right there, but only able to pull 1 back. Some beads save members of the enemy team, and it's Kaizo still being aggressed on.
Yeah, that is the longest stun I have ever seen. No chance for the Aegis, and maybe no chance for Shotgun here. Chased out by Enemy God and Davies under the T2 tower. Enemy, you're by yourself, buddy, and the cage is gonna buy you a little bit of time, but I don't imagine it's gonna buy you much, because look at Dark Please just walking over the exact same place that he almost assassinated Davies, now just puts Enemy God in the dirt, and what looked like a very sprawling, very frantic fight cleans up very quickly for LOL Sus.
Yeah, and while that fight was happening, we actually saw a solo kill once again over in the duel lane. Dark Please taking another victory for himself on this Heimdallr, and he is level 17 in this lane, 3 levels ahead of everybody else in the game, perhaps except for some of his own teammates. And it's also Davies getting taken out by Shotgun Warrior as well on the backside of that fight. I hesitate to even say that fight because it had essentially ended at that point. Just a pick going the way of LOL Sus. So, you know, unfortunate positioning for Davies, as well as once again, Pretty Boy pushes up into this position, gets half of his health taken away almost immediately, as now it's 3 members rotating over to this lane. They're going to try and go on Heimdallr, misses the root out of Kaizo, misses the crutch as well. Heim still at full HP. They're going to try to use the River's Rebuke possibly to try and catch him in, but it's just ability after ability being missed here. And unfortunately, Dark Please now trying to turn it around. A Wheelish on the way, and they want to contest this purple buff. They have the advantage here, except for the member count. They're only 2, while the enemy team is 3, but they're still going to keep going. Unfortunately, they did not get the purple buff, but they'll likely get the green buff. But on the other side of the map, the Pyromancer being taken down. LOL Sus will guarantee that one, but a huge amount of damage being coming out from the assassinate on Davies, as it's Hawkblade on the enemy side, forced to use his beads as he tries to disengage. Johnny is God is in trouble as well, being taken down by Enemy God, grabbing the double kill there, and it's Apollo in the air.
Yeah, and no mana on this Apollo, so a curious rotation when he could have been farming, but instead BFB actually looking for this Fire Giant, and 2 members not quite on it yet. Kaizo up here zoning against the Willish and the Heimdall, gets a little bit of help from Davies here on the disengage, but not enough damage just put out onto this Fire Giant at all. It looks like they're essentially just wasting their time here, and after pulling it and thinking about it for a little bit, realizing maybe that wasn't the best call, and then backing up and resetting.
I think it was a good opportunity to start it up if it was maybe 15 minutes later, maybe.
Right.
You know, maybe a 10-minute later, maybe 5 minutes later. I'm not sure what was required, but they were definitely not ready to pull it at 17 minutes. But the fight ends up being a wash after that. The LOL Sus end up with the gold lead that they've had for a while, slowly been growing, but as you can see by those graphs, it's plateaued for a little bit now, about 3 minutes here, where there hasn't been any serious jumps from either side. So this Gold Fury fight could still be anybody's game. It looks like LOL Sus are going to secure the Oracles.
And they have more than enough opportunity to pull this one here. This is the side of the map you want to fight on, where you're 4 levels ahead Heimdall is, and now solo lane is rotating over. You can only assume this is going to be a big one, but BFB actually backing here. Davies returns to Fountain, as does Enemy God. This is a huge opportunity for LOL Sun.
Not sure they know they've backed, but they're going to start the Gold Fury up anyways. Johnny is God doing some zoning. He forces Kaizo to use the dash, but Emoji's stepping in, could go for the steal, not able to get it off. LOL Sus secures that Gold Fury, and they do lose the Rygenal in the process, but nothing's going to follow after this one. We're going to have to see if they overstay, though. They looked for this Tier 1 mid tower after their last Gold Fury, and they got punished heavily for it, but it looks like they're all heading to the right side of the map instead.
Yeah, and potentially looking for a Fire Giant pull. That might be a little bit overzealous, and they seem to realize that maybe we don't need to be grouped up. Let's just spend some of this gold. Dark Please just ticked over to level 20. I'm sure he's got a little bit of gold to spend for himself. And all relics available for this next fight. A 5,000 gold lead for LOL Sus and that Primal Fury that they just got. You have to imagine that this is when they want to start forcing the issue. You have to group up around this Fire Giant, draw in BFB, and force the rotation out of Pretty Boy. You can't let this Apollo farm and catch up, otherwise you lose all the advantage that you got by putting Dark Please as far ahead.
They have to be careful about the macro play and the steal potential. Double threat coming out of BFB.
That's right.
However, the Apollo able to continue farming on the left side and show up to these fights and the Fire Giant a little bit later than everybody while potentially gaining back some levels. But importantly, on this next objective, Raijin sincerely lacking the secure that Scylla has on 2 of her abilities. Potentially the Raijin ult comes out and does a little bit for that, but you have to be aware of I'm a Monster, and I need to see them looking to take the fights instead of out-securing.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on that one. You want this fight. You do not want the objective. You see a lot of this in the Pro League where you have to pull the objective, get it low enough that they get interested, and then everyone forgets that it's even been pulled and you just start fighting. Because you, like you said, you don't secure these over a Scylla. It just won't happen. You have to realize where your opportunity is and force them in, bait out the Scylla ult, and then reset, and then pull fire, or just take the fight in that moment.
Well, looks like they're trying to group on this side of the map already. Both carries coming in from the mid lane. Johnny is God, looking to zone out, and it's Osiris who's starting it up. Apollo on the purple buff has the potential to rotate over. Johnny's God is now expended to jump, lost his Magi's as well, but it's the Serb ultimate forcing the beats from I'm Already Mad on the Emoja. Enemy God getting out of the cage as well as it's Ravioli locked in and down to half HP, but it's Dark Please finding the kill on Davies, and Pretty Boy rotates in just to die from Shotgun Warrior as well. Kaizo forced into the I'm a Monster, trying to find an escape route, but can't find it. Raijin dashing in, Shotgun Warrior with a double kill, and I'm Already Mad is in trouble with a triple kill, and excuse me, it's Dark Please actually finding that kill, taking the triple away from the Wheelish after ulting, and then it's just a clean fight cleaned up by LOL Sus.
Yeah, and Dark Please is just looking like a whole team by himself at this point. Takes out the jungler, almost takes out the ADC in that one. I mean, what more can you ask for him to do other than apparently zone a T2? Well, your team is almost dying to Fire Giant, but you have the luxury at this point to just send Dark Please to mid to farm while you do the Fire Giant. That is, like you said, a beautiful, clean fight, and I mean, you can use the I'm a Monster, you can use these Yamoja ults, you can use the cage, but if you don't coordinate together while those cooldowns are going off, you don't get any value out of the team count that you've drafted. LOL Sus wants this sprawling, complicated, messy fight where they can just hold W until it works, and hey, if Dark Please kills 2 people on accident at the end of the fight, then you just take that and run with it.
Looks like they're going to try to stop the backs here. Enemy God blinks in, forces a Wheelish to stop her back, but it's just a Wheelish and Osiris now. Everybody else is backed, and a Wheelish in a rough spot. Shotgun Warrior going to fall for the punishment of that lazy back. Tried to back with the rest of his team, and he stopped his own back. If he hadn't stopped it, he may have stayed alive, but unfortunately falling and losing his Fire Giant there. But it's now LOL Sus still in the driver's seat, 11,000 gold up, taking down all the towers on the map except for that lone remaining tier 2 in the left side, and this player damage chart speaks volumes. As you said, Dark Please up at the top of that list, just putting out damage, hitting harder than anybody else in the game right now. He is a force to be reckoned with, and this Oni Fury spawning up soon, it looks like it's going to be the next point of reference for both teams.
Yeah, and they just haven't found an answer for this Heimdall yet. Looking for it here, though, as everybody seems to be grouped up. There's the Yamoja ult.
Looks like he's going to be forced out, able to get into his Bifrost, and now it's Yamoja on the back foot as Scylla tries to get an ult in, but it's now Pretty Boy and I'm Already Mad, both low HP. It's Shark trying to survive, managed to hit that ult against the wall, but they do take him down, and the Talk Blade in a rough spot now. No dash available, but he dashes in place as soon as it comes up, still trapped in the Odin cage, and he will get taken out for it. So 2 for 2 on the side of both teams, and it looks like that's favoring BFB for the moment as they've gotten Fire Giant now off both of the enemy carries, but it looks like they're going to continue the chase. Ravioli trying to find something here, but Johnny is God. Looping high, blinking in, trying to find Kaizo. No dash available, but he's actually the one being engaged on as it's Shotgun Warrior trying to find that last bit of damage, but a great Aegis from Kaizo is going to save his life and potentially punish Shotgun Warrior for trying to find the kill, as now it's Odin on the front line trying to... They all want to find Kaizo, and he is just unkillable right now, using the juke boots and using those relics beautifully to stay alive, and this has to favor BFB for me.
Yeah, especially if they can get a little bit extra here. Johnny has got jumps back in and will not actually get hit by that Citadel. That one a little off the mark. Serval will pick up 2 and set them back down, but just no damage available here. These are both tanks for LOL Sus, and health bars too high, thanks to that Yamoja sustained for 2 tanky characters to get a kill in that one. The end of that fight felt a little bit forced, but other than that, I mean, it's desperation at this point from BFB. They all in Dark Please on that purple buff because they hadn't killed him yet, and seemingly no other reason. And then the fight after that was just messy.
Now the Oni Fury started up from LOL Sus. Raijin into the ultimate, trying to secure it, and he does manage to do so. And now it's Dark Please and Johnny stuck in a rough spot. Johnny's going to fall to the Apollo, finally getting a kill on the board, his 3rd kill of the game, but it's now Ravioli as well in a rough spot, finished off by Enemy God. I'm not sure that Oni Fury was worth 2 members with Fire Giant right there. Fire Giant has now fallen off every single member of your team by virtue of death. It was going to fall off anyways, as we see Fire Giant pretty close to respawning, but they have plenty of time to feel out and kill these Oni waves before Fire Giant's going to spawn. So this should be a relatively even fight the next time we get it. And it's actually Kaizo and BFB pushing down this mid lane. They're going to get this tier 2 tower without any presence from LOL Sus. Great macro play.
Yeah, and this is where you just capitalize on the opportunity that's been given to you. We talked about at the beginning of the game how BFB want these structured fights around these objectives, and LOL Sus, after having great success up until that point, gave it to them, and now going to try to chase out on the back end of it. Enemy God gets CC'd into high heavens and then pulled back down from said high heavens. Cage will keep him alive for the time being, but you don't figure he's going to live through this one. Davies looks back over his shoulder, but waves goodbye to Enemy God as he gets picked up by Shotgun Warrior. A lot of overextending in this one, folks, and it just keeps going on.
And what a poor time to be taken out just as this Fire Giant is spawning. It's going to be a 4v5 defense if they want to put anything on the board, but it's Kaizo who's the one frontmost forward right now, and Ravioli has seen him, but it's Kaizo pushing forward, Copter's I'm a Monster, looking for the steal, and he's going to try and fire that over the wall. It's too high health right now, though, and Kaizo gets picked up by Ravioli. Pretty Boy actually gets a trade back on Shotgun Warrior, but it's also Enemy God and I'm Already Mad that have fallen as well, and Davies able to trade out Hawkblade, so 2 carries now falling. Pretty Boy trying to win this fight, forced to use the Aegis, still going to get stunned by Ravioli, and it's a deicide out of LOL Sus, getting that deicide, onto BFB, and they're going to be able to push down this Phoenix.
Yeah, you don't win those against the Osiris with the Animosity build. That is a rough fight to take, and you don't really have an opportunity to do anything else at that point, so good on Pretty Boy for trying, but this just leads into what should be a free Phoenix here as LOL Sus pick that one up and then head toward the mid-bird as well. Still a little bit of time left on most of these members for BFB. I'm Already Mad respawn, but Enemy God going in trying to stall here.
Trying to stall, not standing in front of Dark Please though, so that Phoenix still down to half HP, but he's forced to get CC'd and taken asunder under the Phoenix, but only down to half HP, and not for very long. He's healed back up now, and they are disengaging. They tried to get that mid Phoenix as well, but members were up too quickly from the side of BFB. Our production pointed out that minion wave in the mid lane, but it looks like a Wheelish cleared that a little bit as on her way to the speed buff, so that won't be getting a Phoenix anytime soon. And now it's still 3 members with Fire Giant on LOL Sus, and I'm interested, what are your thoughts on this defense that has to come out from BFB? Where do their strengths lie? Where do their weaknesses lie? What do they need to do to be winning these fights here?
Well, they can't afford to be split up. Like I've been saying from the beginning, they need a structured, planned out engagement where they coordinate all of their buttons, all one on top of the other. If you're LOL sus, you send Shotgun Warrior into the mid lane to go 1v1 against Davies, and maybe even send Ravioli Bologna over to the solo lane to clear out some of these waves and just put some pressure onto the Titan, because you don't win the straight up 5v5 fight. It is almost certainly going to be in favor of BFB. Just too strong is this Emoji ult, is this Odin ult, is the potential for these resets on this Scylla ult, whereas across the way, Awilish at this stage of the game has excellent one-shot potential in the 1v1. She just pops the ult, blinks in, and the Hydra's proc does 800 plus damage. And there's nothing that Davies could do about it at that point. So you need to divide and conquer, essentially, if you're LOL sus. And BFB, a little close to this T2, but yeah, I was going to say they should not be trying to defend this one. They do end up giving it up.
Well, as they push for this tier 2, we do still see this gold difference coming into play. All 5 upgraded starter items from LOL sus as they push down onto this left Phoenix, and it's going to be a straight 5-on-5 as we start here. The wave cleared out by Kazuo, so they won't have that minion presence, as Osiris just trying to put down a little bit of damage, but he gets forced out, takes a little bit of his HP bar, and they're just going to play patient, wait for this next minion wave. But Dark Please now on a very low health bar before this next minion wave comes into Phoenix. Looks like they still want to be pushing, though. They're looking for this engage, but Kaizo is doing a great job of clearing out these minions. Johnny is God. First one to go in, forces the I'm a Monster from Kaizo, but now it's Ravioli also blinking into the backline, trying to finish off the kill himself, but taking his health fast, losing down to half HP. Great Rivers of Rebuke falling in, trapping Ravioli, but he's able to get out using that corporeal form. Davies, Enemy God, both on low HP, and Apollo now in the air, looking to finish off Hawkblade, but it's actually Kaizo with that crush, finishing off that damage that he needed to do, and that Phoenix defense, just like you said, that straight up 5-on-5, gonna go BFB's way.
Yeah, Davies in the right lane, but there's more action in the left lane. Actually, Shotgun blinks right into the root from Kaizo. There's 1 HP left, jumps right into that crush. Dark Please with a good Aegis. Now Ravioli Bologna trying to buy some time on the backline, chasing around this Scylla, but it's actually Dark Please that's going to be putting out decent damage onto Enemy God, and Ravioli that ends up falling to this Scylla one more time. And now, actually huge crits onto the Heimdall, but here comes Scylla.
Great I'm a Monster from her, the triple kill secured onto Kaizo, might be the quadra kill here as well, folks. Kaizo putting on a show to save his team for potential doom right there. Had that Phoenix Siege gone poorly, but now it's BFB on the offense. Using this large minion wave in mid, they're going to try and push down this Phoenix as Davies doing a good job of defending the right lane. I don't think they can end here, but I think for sure they're going to look for this Phoenix.
Yeah, they should be able to get this one pretty free. Enemy God blink, just blinks in cages, and that's going to be about the end of it for this Raijin. He has no opportunity to step up now, but not a whole lot of time left on these respawn timers, and good damage on Enemy God means that Hawkblade has at least fended off BFB for long enough that they won't be able to end in this one. But just the story of overstaying is perpetual in this game. From the very first couple of fights that we saw to the very last one at that left Phoenix, everybody is just staying a little bit too long for their own good. LOL sus disengaged cleanly from that 5v5, other than Hawkblade stepping into that green pool of death from the Scylla. And they had the opportunity to get out. They had 4 members disengaged and walking away, but they just funneled into that choke point and tried to force the issue, and then that's exactly where BFB thrives. In, like I said earlier, these structured, planned out engagements in one area, and they really executed on that one, and now it's going to be another Fire Giant from LOL sus.
It's still LOL sus on the front foot as they're now driving down this EFG, trying to secure it, and they do manage to do so. Apollo in the air, it's still to start a fight, however. Ravioli on the front line, Apollo landing in on him, and he's taking some HP. Has both tanks now trapped in the River's Rebuke. It's Ravioli in the most trouble here as he will likely fall, except his ult will save his life. All members still with the Fire Giant for the side of LOL sus as they're going to disengage. There won't be any overstaying on this time unless it's Shotgun Warrior overstaying for his own good, trying to find a pick onto Kaizo, but good relic usage will save his life right there. And just another member falling with that EFG, just unnecessary from my point of view. You could have all backed off.
Yeah, and overstaying, you said they weren't going to, but Shotgun Warrior defies you in that last moment, and I have to point it out. No relics used there by Kaizo. Just excellent peel from this Yamoja on the support. Just enough healing to put over the kill threshold. And now BFB 5 members strong, looking for this right lane push.
Trying to push it down. They do have the advantage in terms of members, but certainly in terms of buff. It's still 4 members with the EFG here on the side of LOL Sus. Look at Davies waiting around that corner, looking to get the assassinate, and he's being pinged out by the enemy team, so they know he's there, and they might start pushing on this left wave. Odin blinks in, traps 2 members in the Odin cage. Darkblade forced to use the beat and the Aegis off the back here, but it's Johnny's God in the front line. Both tanks now trying to secure this Scylla. Kaizo running away using the I'm the Monster, but it's Ravioli, low HP, but not as low as Davies, falling, trying to 1v1, trying to get away from this Ravioli, trying to get away from Osiris, but it's Kaizo jumping in with the dash, healing out for his assassin, but it's still the fight going on. He might have put himself in more danger than he bargained for. He will finally be shut down by Ravioli Baloney, and it's now BFB on the run.
Yeah, and here's another new story for you. Somebody overstayed in one of these fights, and this time it's BFB who get punished, but LOL Sus of Titan will take a little bit of damage here. And tell me if it looked like everyone was diving the Scylla in that fight, because that's certainly my perspective on the situation. They seem to have realized where their opportunity is, and they are definitely sending everything they can to try to clean him up. Still 30 seconds on the Scylla's respawn timer, and LOL Sus seem to be wanting to push the issue here.
Yep, Dark Please leading the charge into this mid-Phoenix, but it's actually Davies on the backside trying to delete him, and he does end up helping the Odin do so. Odin gets that last hit on the Raijin as well, trying to finish off these kills, but they do manage to successfully defend that Phoenix push. Johnny is God, potentially overstaying yet again. His jump gets forced out, so will his Magi's, but it's Ravioli Baloney trying to turn this around. Wheelish wants to jump in, and it's actually Cerberus who does so first, getting a true man. Cerberus ultimate pulled in by the Wheelish ultimate as well, and now both of them are fighting on the backline as Pretty Boy trying to take that 1v1 again, but we've learned he does not win it, and it's Ravioli taking that 1v1 and winning it on that side. Enemy God trying to slow the Odin, or trying to slow the Osiris down, and he does end up securing that kill for Kaizo with the I'm a Monster. Now Johnny has got stuck in a rough spot. Hopefully will be taken out eventually by this team, but just some back and forth skirmishes here on the Phoenix in the mid lane specifically, as he will finally end up falling to Kaizo. Now 13, 5, and 8. Just as Dark Plays has been dominating on this Heimdallr, Kaizo is absolutely fighting out of his mind on this Scylla.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you bring up Dark Please, because 32,000 damage in this one, 10 and 3, but doesn't it feel like he's been a little bit quieter in the later stages of this one? I mean, early on, he was literally walking into his own jungle and just killing whoever was there, and we haven't seen a whole lot of value out of this time in the later stages of this game. He is still putting out damage, still just underneath this Scylla on the damage charts, but Enemy God lives through most of these engagements. I don't know if it's a coordinated dive between him and Davies, but it doesn't seem as though they are getting the same value out of this Heimdall that they did in the early, even despite the fact that he is 10 and 3, he does have this 3k pot, and he is on a God that just wants to do a whole bunch of damage.
That fight, at least, it was clear to me who the focus was, and it was Dark Please. Davies sacrificing his life to get that assassinate combo off on this Heimdallr, and Odin in there to help and cage in the Raijin as well. Both carries a little bit too far up, forcing their lives to be forfeit before they could even get any damage on that middle Phoenix. But now we have this Fire Giant spawning back up, and all 5 members are going to be rotating over here as this objective looks to be fought over. Just a lot of posturing to start, however. We'll see who engages first.
And Serb takes a little bit of damage. E-Staff proc will steal some HP, but nothing that they can't just heal up passively with some HP 5. Good vision control defensively for LOL Sus here, probably looking for Davies on this Loki, who has liked to sort of disappear in these fights and then appear out of nowhere, just like Johnny has got.
Johnny's God gets a good ultimate in, forces some members out, pushes some ultimate out from Kaizo, but it looks like he does a ton of damage to the Raijin, finished off by enemy God as Davies also takes out Johnny's God, and he saves the assassin for Shotgun Warrior, who will be falling to enemy God as well. Kaizo picks up another one, Pretty Boy finishes it off. That happened in the blink of an eye, folks, and that is a deicide for BFB, and that will be the game.
Yeah, 39 minutes of battling and still down in gold. Notably, as the game is set to end here, I don't suspect that they will have any trouble taking down the Titan all by themselves, but what a battle from LOL Sus. They really executed their comp in the early stages, got these sporadic, frantic, separated fights, but as the game progressed and as the game state moved toward these planned out engagements that BFB were looking for, it just seemed like LOL Sus didn't quite have a game plan in mind for how to deal with this BFB comp. They put a bunch of resources into diving Kaizo on the Scylla, but he just popped the ult and ran away and waited until the engagement was over, and then just came back in and reaped all of the rewards. Meanwhile, Dark Please suffocated by this enemy god Odin and Davies on the Loki. It has been a spectacular battle over the course of 40 minutes, but I do think that this was a well-earned win for BFB.
Absolutely agree with you there. LOL Sus struggling to find the way they wanted to get those team fights executed as we move towards the later stages of the game. I was seeing consistently Johnny as God on this Cerberus not finding the value he needed to be finding out of these Cerberus ults. Oftentimes it was him and Ravioli Bologna trying to find these dives on the backliners. We often saw those two tanks together, the support and the solo laner, but that doesn't leave anybody to peel for the carries, and Raijin falling to 4 and 9, as well as Cerberus not getting a great scoreline there off either. And you mentioned they do still lose in gold towards the end of the game, but that might have just been the Dark Please early game. We can see that on the scoreboard. 4,000 gold lead ahead of his counterpart Apollo Pretty Boy. It's still at the end of the game, so he still definitely got his work done, but unfortunately he was not strong enough to carry his team to the victory there in that hard-fought 39-minute game. But we are not done yet today, folks. We have one more game from the Diamond Division coming to you up next. Stick around.
Well, we had a 40-minute banger in the last one, Frog, and now we're going into our third and final game of the day. 3DOS Esports against Disabled Table here. Name's a little bit flipped here, chair's a little bit flipped here. I'm back to desk one. Frog, the amphibian himself, back to desk number two, and we've got some work ahead of us. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this game three. I've been wanting spice all day. I don't know if you've heard me say the word spice like 7 times at
I
this point, but
have.
I
I
really
have.
want it. I really want some, and so I'm feeling this game. I want to really, I'm trying to push life into this game right here. So I'm hoping that we get some fun picks, some fun bands. So far, not fun bands coming out. These are as standard can be. But for the first game of the day, we are not going to see Odin picked up.
Yeah, that is a change of pace here, and Artemis going to be rounding out our bands. But I hope that you can like Dragon Ball Z channel some energy into this draft and see if we get a little something different on her. We saw it, but first pick is new, at least, as they lock that one in for the side of Disabled Table. You usually pick that one into the Artemis, and instead it got banned away, so a little early to pick that up in my eyes, but now Stole and Yamoja being looked at for 3DOS Esports, that's more the direction I would have expected the first pick to go with.
Yeah, Soul and Yamoja both definitely higher on the tier list than on her, I would say. Unless you're up against the Artemis, which he's not going to be. So, a little bit of an interesting first pick there out of Disabled Table. You have to imagine it's a comfort pick, which I can absolutely respect. Comfort is king, especially when you're trying to prove yourself in these relegations. But this Soul Yamoja, potentially a duo lane coming out. Could be a Soul mid, but I do like this duo lane. Yamoja has a lot of pressure to help mitigate Soul as she struggles early to get that first item online so she can keep that passive up constantly. But one thing I really like coming out is this Fenrir. We didn't get a chance to see it in the last game, but we saw it in the first game, and it did a lot for that team.
Yeah, a little bit of a return to where we started here. Fafnir also going to be picked up. Raijin has been pretty consistent throughout these games that we've seen as well. And I have to disagree with you, Frog. I like the soul in the mid lane. That's kind of my one trick. So you slandering it and saying that it belongs in the duo lane doesn't sit too well with me.
Well, it looks like 3DOS Esports agree with me as they pick the Raijin, and it looks like it's going towards the mid lane. So hopefully we'll see this Soul in the ADC. Could be Soul solo, still could be pulled out. We don't
Solo?
know. We don't know. Could still go either way. But now that we're seeing all three of each team's like each team's top three picks, I think we're seeing the mid jungle, or excuse me, the mid duo for 3DOS Esports, so they have that. They're still looking for their jungle solo, and we're seeing the absolutely dual lane from Disabled Table, but this Fender could still potentially go to all three of these roles.
Yeah, it is a wild card. I will give you that much, and we'll be interested to see where that one goes. You've talked a little bit about solo Fenrir. We've been seeing some of, but this Fafnir definitely going to be support. We can at least rest on those laurels.
Yeah, it still can't. I was really referring to mid. It could absolutely
Ah,
right. So
okay.
we could see the Fenrir mid here, but we won't see the Scylla mid or the Baba Yaga mid as those two gods get banned out from 3DOS Esports, and we see a jungler and a solo laner banned out from Disabled Table. As now this Ravana gets hovered by 3DOS Esports. I haven't been a recent fan of Ravana. I actually love the god. I love playing him, but I can't advocate for his picking up right now. But we saw him in 2 games yesterday, and now we're seeing him in a game today. He absolutely does bring that early pressure that Fenrir likes to bring. He does have that immunity, which can be useful in an unmeasurable number of ways, but it's not necessarily the pick that's going to provide what a lot of other junglers are providing right now. Osiris provides that dive ability, still space creation, still can be tanky. Fenrir, diving still can be tanky, provides a ton of setup, ton of CC. A lot of other junglers like Kama has the survivability and the dive potential. Several warrior junglers right now, like the Erlong Shen has been coming out, who provides the space making capability, just like several other warriors. But it's really this Ravana who's focused on blowing up targets and single target damage on one person or another, one of the carries. And so I'm not sure this fits with the typical jungle meta we've been seeing.
Does a little bit better into this on her, which typically pretty tricky to dive just because he has two of those displacement abilities, but being able to overhead kick one or the other makes it a little bit simpler. And speaking of diving, you're gonna have to do some of it on this Kronos here, who gets locked in alongside this Guan Yu. If they do not get the assassination off, you have to assume that that is a one fight for disabled tables. So keep your eyes on that one to see how that rewind goes off as Tsukiyomi going to be flirted with here for 3DOS Esports. They're going to see if this one might be the direction they take. Not exactly what I would have expected, but certainly still a very strong character in the solo lane in his own right.
And we are seeing 4 magical, or excuse me, no, am I right? Yeah, 3 magical. Still usually more than the 2 magical we're seeing. But importantly, instead of the 3 magical characters that you expect to see when you think of a 3 magical comp, which is maybe the mid laner and then a guardian solo and a guardian support, you're seeing both your carry and your mid laner have that magical damage. And so as opposed to having one of them be able to shred guardians a little bit better if they build into only one damage type or one defense type, now you're going to have both damage types being magical on that. But they do have 2 assassins to potentially help mitigate that, as obviously assassins known for putting out their damage. But it's likely going to be a Tsukiyomi. So you know what, yesterday I thought it was going to be a Tsukiyomi solo and it was a Fenrir solo, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's going to be a Ravana solo. Tsukiyomi sticking to the jungle.
Then you know what, Yamoja mid and Soul solo. How about that? How about Tsukiyomi ADC as well? Let's just mix it all
Sure,
up. But
sure.
before we load into this one, Frog, I think that we're about ready. Which one do you see taking this one? Do you like the disabled table comp? They've got the Fafnir, they've got the objective DPS with this double ADC, or is the double mage comp that the Redos Esports going to take this one away?
I think I have to favor 3DOS Esports just because of a weakness that we talked about a little bit earlier in the day here. Fenrir being picked up for disabled table, and I love this god in a vacuum, but it looks like he's going to struggle if the enemy team decides to pick up those consistent beads as he has struggled in other game. I mean, remember that Fenrir earlier today was picked in a comp with Ares, Cerberus, and
Right.
Artemis. Everybody was burning beads, and he got to have a field day because of it. But on this one, the only other person really burning beads is possibly Fafnir and that Draconic Corruption. Kronos getting a good stun off on her, getting a good pillar stun off. Like, there are potential opportunities
Right.
for this to happen, especially if the Guan dive is being used as well. That Guan stun can absolutely be valuable in the middle of a team fight, but it's definitely not as clear cut as the draft that we saw earlier in the day. Whereas 3DOS Esports, it's really hard not to get value out of that Yamoja ult. It's really hard not to get value out of that Raijin ult, out of that Tsukiyomi ult, as well as you have 2 assassins who their only code is to dive. Nobody's peeling on these assassins. They have to dive, and so they're going to inevitably be diving together, is my hope. I think 3DOS Esports just has a draft that's a little bit easier to execute, so I favor them going into this game.
And there you have it from Frog on the desk here, but we are still the casters that we're going to be taking you into this one as we load in here and just taking a look at both of the. Well, hang on a second. Robin actually going to be in the solo lane. We thought that he might have. You did say that, but and this is a big but. Did you say Kronos was going to be the mid laner?
I didn't explicitly say it, but I like to think that I would have thought it, but I guess I can't prove myself now. I do like the Kronos in the mid lane, I think more than I like in the duo lane, especially because he's able to get this build online a little bit earlier than or a little bit safer, not earlier, safer than he is maybe in the duo lane, especially if this fighting is forced around one of these side lanes. One thing I'm not super happy to see out of him as start, though, is this Vampiric Shroud, just like we talked about last game. The Vampiric Shroud, or 2 games ago, excuse me, on the Discordia, the Vampiric Shroud gets a lot more value into the Sacrificial Shroud if you're going that Warlock staff, and we've seen several Warlock staff be built on Kronos in the SPL and other leagues. It's generally a solid build on him if you're able to stack that item up, which I would expect from the mid lane here, but we're not seeing him out of the start here.
Yeah, instead they're going to go for a little bit of a switch up and actually hold that thought. Big Monkey already found Bossman Pico for the first blood of this one. I guess that he tried to walk into the jungle, and that is a whole bunch of CC to be walking into. And a whole bunch of damage coming out here in the dual lane. Solon to separate, desperately trying to juke out and try to get to some safety, but no safety will be found as Cicada notches one for himself as well. 2-0 for a disabled table, seemingly out of nowhere, will start them off with a comfortable 1,000 gold lead.
Yep, they do get on the board early as a gank. Not even a gank necessarily, but it was Fenrir in the mid lane.
Oh my gosh.
Picking up that first one. Yemoja steps up a little bit too far here, taking damage. Consistent autos coming out from Cicada, but not able to finish off the kill just barely. But they want to put on this pressure consistently over in the dual lane, that's clear.
Yeah, Chronos under some duress here, but it's actually Big Monkey finding Free Dunk for the kill that will go down here. Amy O, whatever you want to call it, just barely manages to get out by the skin of his teeth with a good beads and will instead retreat under tower. This Fenrir is active, man, and as much as Bossman Pico wanted that kill onto the Chronos, at least managed to get away from that one is Amo.
I'm gonna go with aim to the O. Is that acceptable?
Aim
Like,
to the I like that a lot.
To the power of O, right? Because
Or aim degree, perhaps?
Oh, I like that. Aim degrees. Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. Aim degrees, putting some pressure on Raijin here in the mid lane as he has still maintained that level lead he got from that assist after taking him out early. But he's able to survive that gank, as you mentioned, as this Tsukiyomi putting a little bit of pressure on him. And I want to talk about these starters briefly. Looking at Fenrir going the Eye of the Jungle as opposed to the Mannequin Scepter, which is a little bit stronger right now, and Tsukiyomi choosing to go that Mannequin Scepter, but he is the one I would maybe expect to go Boomba's Dagger instead, just because of how strong that is on Tsukiyomi, able to get those auto attack cancels consistently on his empowered auto attacks from his passive, those ranged autos coming out, which is why we might thought he might be playing ADC on the desk previously. But he chooses to go into the jungle and build this Mannequin Scepter, which Hidden Blade is a very powerful item right now. I can't fault him for building it by no means, but I'm interested to see if he's going to use that extra additional pressure he's going to get in this early game to go anywhere besides the mid lane, because I think Chronos, now that he's hit level 5, is going to be a much harder target to grab.
Well, Raijin forced into the ult here. Beads come out from Big Monkey and a little off the mark on the Brutalize there, but he's going to have to retreat into a whole bunch of garbage damage from Bossman Pico. So Beads held on to, notably from the Raijin, that kill a little bit execution light, we'll say, as he manages to get out of that one alive, and Big Monkey will instead have to sit around with his only 2 kills 4 minutes into the game, so boo-hoo for him. But it is not boo-hoo for Disabled Table, who still are on the aggression, except for Aim to the Degree, who, now under a little bit of duress himself, will end up backing. Looks like Tsukiyomi ult was the cause of his health bar being that low. Bossman Pico looking to answer back this pressure and aggression that we've seen from Big Monkey, but I mean, when it's a Fenrir, it's really hard to contest with that early game presence that he brings.
It's the second time now we've seen Bossman Pico try and take advantage of this Chronos and his lack of mobility, and he does have a lack of mobility, only a movement speed buff there, but he saw Fafnir rotated a little bit earlier than the Emoja, able to have some successful peel save Aim to the Degrees there's life, but he still had that Chronos ult to expend. I'm not sure he was ever in any real danger, and I really think Bossman Pico has to realize that and start targeting a different lane. Someone who's already been under duress is this Ravana, but he's managed to maintain the same level as his Guan Yu, and Guan Yu still not having a ton of defense online. Only that starter item to have the defense, but now a fight on the red buff.
Yeah, River's Rebuke already called here. Fenrir getting very low. There's a stun from Brother Man, and that's an answer back as 3DOS Esports, not sure if they got the red buff, they definitely got the kill. Raijin ult onto Aim Degree, and now that's also going to be a disarm into the stun. Very potent CC combo here. Aim to the Degree will walk around and try to find some safety, but there is no safety to be found on that side of the map. 3DOS Esports, after being kind of quiet up until this point, suddenly clap back and realize red buff is where we draw the line.
Well, the key here is they did not engage. They've still continued to struggle on all of the fights they've tried to engage, or all of the games they've tried to start. But it was this time Disabled Table trying to push their lead a little bit more by going onto that red buff, and they grossly overestimated their ability to fight them in their own jungle. Fenner falling immediately, basically. I mean, he did not even get a chance to jump away over the wall, but now it might be Sakita in trouble. Still having a lot of mana, but it's Kikiomi chasing with his ultimate. Now Fenner's, or excuse me, Anher's jump is down, but a great self-heal using that impale to push Bossman Pico away, and he'll manage to stay alive and keep his beats.
A little forced there from Bossman Pico, and that's not the first time that we've said that about one of this jungler's engagements. 2 forced in the mid, now 1 in duo. You have to give a little bit more time for Lineage on the Soul to set up that gank, because just ramming your head into a brick wall doesn't work unless you're specifically trying to go on a Raijin, at which point you get his beads and then he's forced to jump away. Yamoja also uses beads on that Ragnarok ult, so 2 of the 8 beads in the game have already been taken down, as everybody seems to be looking for some CC.
Yeah, Fatbear coming back in here as well, stunning the Emoja, but the Riptide will get her out of danger for right now, as Fenner has back to base to finish off that item. And it looks like he's going to go into that Pridlin next, which I like the decision from Hold That Thought. Starting a fight is aimed to the degree.
Yeah, and he gets the rewind off, and now Yamoja trying to get out 1 HP. Draconic Corruption will continue this fight. Soul ult off the mark, and now everybody running for the side of Disabled Table. They got the red buff. Can they run away? They will not be able to do so, as 1 and then 2 back-to-back cleaned up for 3DOS Esports. Big Monkey will, however, find Bossman Pico on the backside, but hang on, it is Guan Yu and Robin. Both solo laners show up to this one. Tallow Assault onto the Raijin, forces the jump away. Linehead is literally free casting in the middle of this fight, and then finds his lane opponent in a different lane and puts him down. Whatever goes down at this red buff is just absolutely driving these teams insane, because they fight to the death over it.
Oh, that's where 75% of the kills have come from at this point. Outside of some early skirmishes, early ganks that were successful, it's all about this enemy team's red buff. Neither Scorpion has yet to be taken as well, so far we've only seen that be the focal point, but it's really this Chronos play that's intriguing me so far, and how he's using this ultimate. I think he really needs to be using it more for safety than he is. He seems to be putting himself in purposefully aggressive positions, right? He's the first one in front at this red buff, or he's the first one in front at the last red buff, and he uses his ultimate, but it still puts him in a place of danger, and after that, he's got nothing to help him, right? He's in between the tier 1 and tier 2 towers there, and his ultimate just does not bring him back far enough, and it never is going to bring him back far enough if he's that far up at this stage of the game, so he has to be more careful about that usage.
Also going to need to be careful here. Gets picked up by the good boy, and just a couple more seconds on that ult. Check out the diamond on the right side. Not quite full in time, so Big Monkey will get 1 more onto this Robin, who has just been absolutely put into the dirt and camped. Ult just now coming up, and I mean, Guan Yu, really not a god that bullies super hard, but when you're getting camped and just put down this bad by Big Monkey on this Fenrir, there's only so much you can do to answer back. And here we go, folks. Red buff invade again by Disabled Table, but they're actually not in time for this one, so 3DOS might spare us some bloodshed.
Seems that they perhaps chosen to focus the solo lane and give up that red buff time, or at least they weren't thinking about it ahead of time, as half of Yamoja's health taken out by the Chronos right there. Great poke coming out from him. Fenner continuing to put some pressure here over on this right side. He's choosing to back right now, but this could be a favored fight for the side of Guan and Fenner if they chose to stay, but Ravana actually still managing to maintain close to the Guan Yu's level, still only a level down, maybe even just half a level down, and it looks like he's going into more of that aggressive build. The Void Shield start, what's likely going to be a Sledge up next in the item lineup, and it looks like Guan going full defense after that initial Rangda's tier 2 start, and so likely going to be a little bit tankier, a little bit more beneficial going into these team fights, especially since Tsukiyomi also going for this Soul Eater build, it looks like. So neither of these assassins dedicating into tankiness might spell trouble for the late game, as they're looking for someone to survive on this dive as opposed to just raw damage output.
Yeah, and there is something to be said for not building defense from behind. There's an old adage in Smite where you will never build enough defense to save you if you're behind. You should just try to get what damage off you can. And that seems to be the school of thought that Free Dunk is subscribing to as, I mean, even if he's tanky at this point, what is a level 11 Robin who doesn't do any damage really going to do for you? Not that much. So I think that it's probably wise that he itemizes a little bit more aggressive here. And meanwhile, defensive build, second time around, 2 games in a row, we see a little bit more protections built from this Fenrir. Pridwin and Jotuns gets a whole bunch of cooldown real fast, and 3DOS Esports gets this Gold Fury started up real fast, and oh my god, Aim to the Degree just walked up slowly and just killed himself to the entirety of Disabled Table, who drops some celebration ults in response, but they have all the pressure around this mid lane. Great damage onto the Fafnir here, who's forced to jump away. And Free Dunk in this backline, finally getting to rotate out of his lane, gets a little bit of value in the back, but now it's going to be Tsukiyomi diving with him. Damage onto this Guan Yu, but very tanky is this solo laner. They're going to have to connect with a little bit more. Raijin jumps in. Robin gets that Piranha Onslaught and the overhead smash onto the backline. Now it's going to be Fafnir jumping out, trying to regroup, but it is 3DOS Esports who are largely taking this fight.
Still looks like they want to contest this Gold Fury just a little bit. Free Dunk beads forced out of the Fenrir right there. But look at Elevate Ares coming around on the back line. This Gold Fury is getting low. Brotherman also very low. They're going to try and steal it, and they
No shot.
successfully take it away. They're going to look for kills on the back end as well. Free Dunk being body blocked out by Aim to the Degree as he's come back from Gaze to pick up a double kill, and it might be a triple if he's allowed to take out Brotherman, but he's missing ability after ability.
Who got the triple?
Who comes through with the hammer to finish off that kill, and Cicada picks up the final kill onto Bossman Pico as well. But oh man, just barely. He died so early in that fight that he's able to come back, steal with the Gold Fury, and get a triple kill. That's how long they were able to delay, but I still can't condone the Kronos' actions. Aim to the Degree, you saw what I just said. He pushed up too far in that fight, and he was the first casualty just instantly. He was the first one up, and he's like, okay, I'm safe because I can press 4. And then he dies before he gets a chance to get the 4 off. And
Right.
They still managed to come out on top. Like, yes, blessed, they have a huge gold lead now, partially because of that Gold Fury huge fight, tower taken off the board, Pyromancer. But, I mean, if he continues to put himself in danger, they're going to start losing these fights if 3DOS Esports are just handed windows back into them.
Right, and they did seem to have a window there, as now maybe trying to look for one onto Fenris. Stun unfortunately makes that Robin ult miss. Do the shots connect? That is a no on the Piercing Moonlight, so Bossman Pico goes and farms his back camps. 3DOS seemed to be getting back into it. They got those kills all in a row. They felt the momentum swing. They went for the Gold Fury, but like you said earlier, just perhaps a little too overzealous to stick to that one when you don't have the zone control that you really need. If a Fafnir can walk all the way around mid camps and then loop around on you, there's really only so much you can do but coin flip the objective. And I mean, Disabled Table, it lands on heads for them this time.
Yeah, I mean, even if they don't manage to steal away that objective, though, it's still a huge positive for them. They're going to get the 4 kills regardless at that point in the game. And Aim to the Degree just using this 2-level lead he now has to put absolute pressure onto this Umoja and the Raijin, both forced to back up just to 1 man. How strong can 1 man be? Well, Aim to the Degree on this Kronos is definitely putting his best foot forward. Look at that golden hand. He's just been farming. Probably the first time he's back since that Gold Fury. He's going to get a huge item spike there. He finishes Telekines, gets that tier 2 pen online. He is going to be swinging for the fences already into this game, likely having the, but well, maybe the top player damage, likely the solo laners at this point in the game. But Ravana choosing to go that Blackthorn Hammer instead of the Sledge, more mana-focused, utility-focused item, not one we see very often at this point in the game, but it's still Tsukiyomi. These are the 2 builds I really want to focus on, is the Ravana and the Tsukiyomi and how they're going to build as we transverse later into the game. And Tsukiyomi still maintaining his full damage mindset. The Soul Eater almost finished off stacking right now, just 3 more stacks, and it looks like he's going into Erendite next, looking to really really finish off that hard-hitting ultimate with the basic attack following it.
Fafnir over here poking his head into the duo lane and gets a good stun onto Lynant, but very safe is this soul and manages to get back under the tower as such. But don't you just love watching Aim to the Degree play this Chronos, because like the guy literally presses 2 and then walks into melee range to try to hit the 3. That is like the Chronos thing in my eyes, where why use a skill shot when I can just make it melee range? And so far he's been punished for it, what, twice, maybe once if you count the Gold Fury and nothing else. But we'll have to keep an eye on that cooldown and see if he gets any more value out of the Chronos ult, because if he gets blown up like he did in the last one, I don't imagine that these fights will be going as well for Disabled Table as they have been. But I mean, as I say that, they've got a 5,000 gold lead. Clearly they know better than I, and Lynant knows better than to not use beads there. Gets out of danger and finds some safety under T2. This red buff, it always comes back to the red buff as all 10 members start to group around it. Huge damage from Aim to the Degree himself onto this Yamoja. Raijin uses the beads as well and jumps out. It is everybody swarming onto the red buff from Disabled Table. River's Rebuke will not deter anyone here. Lynant just this guy is literally walking up by himself and fighting whoever is in front of him as Chronos, and it's working.
It's almost as fun to watch Aim to the Degree as it is to say Aim to the Degree. But
yeah, I love it.
It's absolutely fun to watch him play and be a little bit more aggressive than maybe he needs to at times. And it's certainly not getting him super punished right now, as they do end up getting a pick on that red buff fight, and they do end up taking the Gold Fury away. Overlord Cap's not able to steal right now. Alpha Wolf trying to find him. He has no beat at this point, unable to jump over the wall. Gets the Aegis forced out, but he will fall eventually. And now all 5 members of the team of Disabled Table able to be in this left lane, ready to push down this tier 1 left tower. They could even go for the tier 2. They're in a great position right now.
Yeah, I love how Lynant just kind of like jets by and waves to the mid laner as he gets like just gone on by the entirety of Disabled Table in a CC chain. Just like, yeah, I can't really help you, so I'll just be over here. And 3DOS Esports, they need some help at this point, Frog. What do you see as their comeback potential in this one? Because they need an opportunity 7k down, and getting half of your health bar taken off of your support probably isn't the best start.
I think Brother Man has to be more impactful on this Yamoja. I've seen a couple of solid Rivers Rebukes out of him, but they're almost all defensive. They're almost all on the back foot. Not one has come out with some serious setup quite yet. And as you've seen countless times at this point, he just steps up in the mid lane, he gets poked out, and then he just dies, right? And Aim to the Degree is able to do stuff like that while Yamoja was farming the wave in the mid lane. It's not necessarily Yamoja's fault there. I mean, Tsukiyomi shouldn't have stepped to Aim to the Degree. What a huge mistake on his part. But you've seen countless times. How many times have we seen this game, Yamoja and Raijin, or just Yamoja standing in the mid lane and not doing anything to avoid being poked to half HP? And then she just has to leave, right? It's almost like a lack of effectiveness, and Chronos is just able to farm damage and farm effectiveness at this point. Only Raijin here to defend this buff invade.
I think he got it, but I think it's going to cost him his life as no relics available for him. Gets the Taiko drums off, and that's the end of that story, as he gets put down by who other than Aim to the Degree on this Chronos. We're probably saying the name wrong, but we're saying it a hell of a lot because he's had a hell of a set so far. And now aggression continues to just sprawl into the 3DOS Esports jungle, looking for a fight literally wherever they can find it, even over the green buff, which, I mean, I don't know about you, Frog. I don't typically consider that to be a hotly contested objective.
No, absolutely not. But when Aim to the Degree is in the game, he wants the green buff. He needs it on his team, and so he's absolutely going to force his team to follow up with him, as he's now 3 levels ahead in this mid lane role. Raijin has fallen a number of times here. 2 early in the game, and then 1 right there. He's managed to survive in these last couple fights, but right there with both his relics being down, unable to survive. But now his beads have come off a cooldown. He'll have a little bit of extra safety, as will several other members of his team, but if people are just keep getting caught out of position and allowing Aim to the Degree to get this poke off, I mean, if members are starting the fights at half HP from the side of 3DOS Esports, I'm not sure they'll have a chance to fight back into this game at all.
Somebody needs to find this Kronos in these fights, and well, I shouldn't say that because they know where he is. He's right in front of them at all times, but somebody's gonna have to cast on him one of these times in order for these fights to start going 3DOS's way. There's, you know, a debuff put on him there, but no actual damage comes out. It just feels like he's invincible, and I say that knowing full well that he's died 3 times up until this point. And yes, we've put the onus on this Kronos, but how can you not when he is literally frontlining, backlining, and middle lining for Disabled Table unpunished? Now it's going to be Yamoja trying to get out here, but Disabled Table just have all of the space in the world with a Fafnir double ADC composition at the Fire Giant. And if they don't start this one up and finish it in about 10 seconds, or, okay, 10 seconds was an overestimate, maybe a couple of seconds, then, you know, what do you draft the combo for?
Yeah, Ravana not even able to get close.
Oh, no.
They're trying to chase him out right now. Fafnir missing that CC, unfortunately, is going to let him survive. But now the members of Disabled Table just get to continue pushing up this lane. We see Sol and Tsukiyomi in the bottom left side of the map, and Disabled Table know that. They're sending Fenrir to defend the potential Phoenix push, but no, he's staying. It's a 5-on-3 here.
Yeah, they use the River's Rebuke, and there's a Guan Yu stun, but he's just trapped inside here. Half HP chunked onto the Soul Laner. That gives time for the 3DOS Esports ADC and jungle to show up. So we've got a 5-on-5 brewing, but not quite taking it. Disabled Table, 8k up with Fire Giant, might want a couple of towers and maybe a Gold Fury before they really start looking to push their advantage. Where do you draw the line if you're 3DOS? Do you try to fight them before they spend, or do you just say, we have to fight under the Phoenix?
Oh no, you have to fight under the Phoenix at this point. I mean, you need to find a target that's taking Phoenix damage. I mean, one of two things, right? You have these not incredible, but 2 dive gods that are meant to dive, right? Free dunk on this Ravana, Bossman Pico on this Tsukiyomi. Neither of them having a great game right now. I think Tsukiyomi is standing at 0-5 or 0-6. He is not putting up, 0-5, not putting up a great game right now. And Ravana as well, 0-3 on the scoreboard, despite having a 1-level lead. But neither of them have been able to do their job successfully. And now, when these 5v5 fights are forced, like they're going to be under the Phoenix, or like they're going to be under the next fight, right? I mean, they should definitely have a 5-on-5 fight in the near future. Then these 2 dive characters know who they need to target. I mean, it should be absolutely clear who they need to target, and it's Aim to the Degree on this Kronos, right? They've killed him in prior fights for walking up too far before he's able to use his ult, and if anything, they now have more damage, and it's not like Kronos has built any defense. In fact, he's built Sacrificial Shroud, which takes health to use abilities. He should be easier to kill than ever if you are 100% focusing your dive on him. Now, there's another opportunity, there's another route to go, whereas you can target the tank that's going to be tanking the Phoenix as they dive the Phoenix here. But the reality is you don't have a traditional ADC. Your Soul can't build Kins. He's not going to build a ton of percent pen. He only has that Demonic Grip and that Typhon's Fang, which is, the Demonic Grip's going to take a couple basic attacks to, stack up, and it's still not going to be effective as that Atalantis Kins combo. Hold that thought. Tsukiyomi caught out in a really weird spot here. It looks like he's blinking away, but this might just... What? And they're gonna let him go.
Hello?
This is how prioritized the green buff is in this game. He needed. Can't speak more than that.
Well, they got the green buff. That's for damn sure. But Free Dunk is very, very dead, surrounded by the entirety of Disabled Table, and they're popping that Draconic Corruption. This is the go button. They're going in, but it's fantastic Rivers Rebuke here is going to cut off some of that DPS, but as those walls fall, they still have the double ADCs, and they've got the Frenzy, so no slouches are the Disabled Table backline for doing damage, and you wanted Yamoja. There's a great hoop. Raijin uses Taiko drums, but Aim to the Degree just resets to full HP. Now Fenrir, after split pushing that Phoenix in mid, rotates over. 2 Phoenixes already taken in this one. Blink and the Fenrir will get 1 set of beads, and then Brother Man will die as a consequence. Alpha Wolf will also take down Bossman Pico, who apparently came back after getting the green buff, but just in time to see the Titan fall as Disabled Table decide that is the end of the game. They are done with it.
Look, I called out Yamoja, and I have to. Brother Man played well ever since that point. He had 2 fantastic Rivers Rebukes on the Phoenix defenses to slow those down, had a couple great Riptides to put his team into as advantageous a position as I suppose they could be in. But it was really, as we came down to the end of the game, those dive characters that they picked really struggling to perform for them. Freedom, not in a position to dive with his carry, in fact, getting picked before the Phoenix Siege can even happen, and Bossman Pico prioritizing the green buff of all things, or just even if it wasn't the green buff, even if it wasn't the green buff, he's out of position massively as the enemy is pushing that Phoenix, and they never get a chance to dive together. They never get a chance to coordinate their pushes, and nobody is ever able to shut down that Kronos or even the Anher putting in a good amount of damage, definitely putting in work. Aim made all the fun plays, but it was definitely not a one-man effort from the side of Disabled Table. So have to give credit to the side of Disabled Table for playing that one cleanly, and they managed to close it out.
Yeah, hats off to the Order side in this one as they make it happen in less than 25 minutes. And you are 100% on the money. At the end of the day, that is a double ADC Fafnir composition. There is not going to be one member that stands out as much as the others. It was a group effort. We just highlighted the interesting gameplay. And while they might have let Bossman Pico live, they definitely did not let the Titan live. So that is going to do it for us on this Albion Giants broadcast. Those have been our 3 relegations games we decided to show to you guys here. I have been Kaizo, and I have been joined on all 3 of these fantastic broadcasts by Mr. Frog, and King Batu has been doing the dirty work behind the scenes for us. Stick around and see what we got going on. Check the Discord. Make sure you have your announcements unmuted. I know that you people mute them, so don't make me come out there. And we will see you guys next week for some more Smite action.
Empiric wants to